Okay.
Views and opinions expressed by the On the Spot with David Rodgers show are solely based on the
ready
show's
to
hosts,
come up.
guests, and viewers, and we are solely responsible for all show content in its entirety and does not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of our sponsors in any way. These broadcasts are presented and made public by the On the Spot with David Rodgers show in the hope that it will be entertaining and informative to our viewers and listening audience.
Freezing on me.
Is it? Okay.
Okay, I believe we're good now.
Okay. You can restart it when you want.
Go.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on the spot with David Rodgers. Glad to be here at Kat Kamek's house. Hello, say hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
There you go. You got a beautiful home here. Thank you for inviting us in and giving us a little bit of your time. We know you're a busy person, especially getting ready to run for Congress, and that's, of course, what we want to talk about tonight. But anyway, Friday special edition with On the Spot with David Rodgers. I've got Mr. Mitchell Gunner, our co-host generally on the Tuesday and Saturday night show. Got Mr. Dave Holland producing. Mr. Byron Bagwell Cat could not be with us tonight because he is actually working. So he did want me to tell you that he will be on and he will be listening. He will be watching. He loves you very much. So I'm sure that he's probably going to have a couple of questions for you as well. Our director, Mr. Michael Heater, is working tonight as well. I don't know if you know Michael, but he works dispatch and firefighting over in Bradford County.
I do know Michael here.
So he cannot be with us tonight because he is working, but he is directing the show from over in Bradford County. I can assure you of that. So if I get off script, I'm assuming he'll be poking me in the side, telling me, "Hey, here we go from way over there." But anyway, glad to be here. Glad that you guys could be on. We got, like I said, Ms. Kat Kamek with us tonight, running for the 3rd Congressional District seat. That's going to be left vacant by Mr. Ted Yoho, who's done us a great service. And I guess, is he retired? Is that what he's doing, Kat?
Yes, he is. So Congressman Yoho, he made his campaign pledge of 8 years. And at the end of this year, it will mark his 8th year. So he will be completing his 4th and final term at the very end of this year, and we're very sad and sorry to see him go, but he is a man of his word, and so he is sticking to that.
Good. That is very good. So I don't know if you've ever watched our show before. I know you've been on our show before. Yeah. The time that you were, that was at the fairgrounds during the fair over at when Bradford County has their fair going in March. I could not be on that show because I'm actually a DJ on the side as well. So I actually had a wedding to do that night. But my 2 cohorts and Mr. Holland and Mr. Heater filled in very well. And I was watching it as we were coming home. And you gave a great interview that night as well. And we hope that we can follow that up and maybe better than that last one was. So I'm getting ready and excited. Right? No, none at all. None. So you're going to do just fine. But if you ever seen our show, we open up with a prayer and the pledge. So if you don't mind, I'd like to do that now. So I'm going to lead us in prayer if you don't mind.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Our righteous Heavenly Father, let us once thank again for a wonderful and glorious day you've given us, dear Lord. Thank you for letting us live in the greatest country in the world today, and that's the United States of America. Thank you for the greatest fighting force in the world, and that's our United States military, dear Lord, the coalition of them all. Keep a hedge of protection over them, dear Lord, as they're out there fighting for our freedoms and our liberties. And please, bring them home safe to their families. Thank you for the food that we receive each and every day, that it goes into the nourishment of our bodies and our bodies to thy service. Anybody with a spoken or unspoken prayer request, please touch our hearts, dear Lord. You know their needs and their wants, and you can make things happen, dear Lord. You are the ultimate healer, and you can touch their people and their hearts. Again, thank you for this great week that we have. Thank you for this great 4th of July weekend that we are celebrating, dear Lord, the independence of this great country and this great nation. Thank you again for everything that you've done for us and that you continue to do for us. We ask for these things in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right, if we can stand for the pledge, we also do the pledge as well. So I'm going to ask Mr. Mitchell Hunter, if he would, to lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. All right. Again, welcome to On the Spot with David Rodgers. This beautiful lady that you see here to my right and your left is Miss Kat Kamek. Again, thank you for inviting us into your lovely home. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is a beautiful home. I want to know who has put all those bricks down there.
So one of the things that I love most about our home is our driveway. I know that sounds a little bit silly, but our driveway, and I know that y'all can't see it, but we have the original brick from downtown Gainesville, the Augusta block.
Right.
And the lady who owned our home previously and built this home, she owned a paving company.
Right.
And she was one of the contractors that got the job that took all the bricks from downtown when they laid asphalt down and decided to actually make her driveway out of the Augusta block. And so it's very unique. It's very special. It's a beautiful herringbone pattern. And I think it's just, again, a touch of old Florida. The bricks were manufactured and we did some history on it. They were actually made in 1930.
1930.
Wow.
Yes.
And is Augusta brick, is that right?
Augusta brick.
Augusta brick.
Augusta block.
Block. Yes. So, yeah, we were marveling that as we pulled up. So, again, thank you for inviting us into your beautiful home.
Thank you for coming in.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get started. We got a lot of people on. A lot of people, I'm sure, want to ask you questions, want to know about you. So, if you've, again, been watching the show, we've interviewed Sheriff Gordon Smith. Mm-hmm. And last week we had Gavin Rollins on. And now, of course, it's your turn. So, if you would just tell everybody a little bit about you, a little bit about your background, and get personal with some of our viewers.
Sure, absolutely. So, I'm actually a third-generation commercial sandblaster. Grew up on a cattle ranch, daughter of a single mom, and grew up in the country. So hard work was part of our everyday life growing up. It was something that we never shied away from. So whether we were feeding horses, chickens, cows in the morning or late at night, something always needed to be done. Some fence needed to be fixed at some point. Yeah. And growing up in the monument and sandblasting business, you know, you're a kid who's growing up on construction sites or the job sites and playing with compressors and tools and probably things that no child should ever be playing with. But I actually, recently we were reviewing old family tapes, and I took my very first steps at our family business, you know, with all the hoses and the construction and portable compressors and everything around. And it's just a really unique way to grow up, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And it was just a great experience growing up and having those values instilled in me. But then in college, I found out in April of 2011 that we lost our cattle ranch to a big government program, an Obama-era program. Right. And we all know after the 2008 crash how tough things were.
Oh, yes.
Really bad. There were a lot of Americans hurting. And unfortunately, we were one of the casualties of that. And it was really that lifetime of experience of big government interfering in our small business to that moment when we lost the cattle ranch of, I've had enough. I've had enough of big government and we need to do something. And so after being homeless for several months, I got a call from Ted Yoho and he asked if I would help out with the campaign, and that's how I ended up working for Congressman Ted Yoho and running his campaign and all the subsequent ones following that.
You know, you were talking about the crash of 2008. I was actually working for a steel company, and I don't know if you know it. It was called SMI Joist that was in Stark, and actually changed over to CMC Joist. And in one day, Kat, I lost a lot of money. And, I'm still trying to recoup some of that money, as we speak. And that was a tough time right then. And like you said, it hurt a lot of hardworking Americans. But, we've rebounded since that point. And I know we got a lot of things going on in our great country today, with the COVID-19 situation, of course, and then, of course, with the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa thing going on today. But we'll get into that as we go. But I do want to welcome in some of our viewers here that want to say hello to you, by the way. I don't know if you know Austin Stevenson. I forgot to mention him. He's our weather guy. He's 18, just turned 18 years old, and he's legally blind.
Holy smokes.
But what a great weather guy. We get our weather from Mr. Austin Stevens. He wants to be a meteorologist when he grows up, and I think me too.
I love that.
So, yes, Kim Lee, Brandon Ludwig is watching. Kyle Jackson, do you know Kyle?
Kyle Jackson.
Yes,
he's so familiar.
Yeah, Cat, 100%. There you go. Mr. Bagwell, who I told you is working, but he's joining us as well. Let's see here. Dale Woodruff says, great lady. She deserves your, and I want to thank, vote.
Hey, Dale.
Leanna Nelson is my sister that lives up in, actually in North Carolina, Boone. So we got somebody watching from Boone, North Carolina.
Hey,
so
sis.
yeah, there you go.
I'll make sure he behaves.
Please do, or I'll get in trouble. Vincent Tucker graduated. I'm not originally from Bradford County. Mm-hmm. I'm originally from Pascagoula, Mississippi. That's where I grew up and was born and raised. Well, not born, but raised there. It's actually born in the Canal Zone, the Panama Canal Zone.
Holy
so,
goodness.
yeah, so my mother's Spanish.
Very interesting.
Is it?
And, we can talk about that.
Yes, we can.
China has a very big role in the Panama Canal.
Yes, that's exactly right. We will talk about that. But my mom is Spanish descent, and my father was American. So, the half and half, if you want to call it, I guess. Just a little more Spanish than American, I guess. But Vincent Tucker went to my high school 8 years. I graduated in 1980. He graduated in 1988.
That's when I was born.
Is that right? Well, hey, I bet you know a guy. You're a Gator fan?
I'm a Gator fan.
Are you? So do you know a guy named Shane Matthews?
We do know Shane.
Oh, Shane Matthews. I love Shane Matthews, too. His daddy was my defensive back coach back in 1980, and then he took over the football program. And, of course, Shane Matthews and them won the state championship that year that Vincent Tucker graduated. And, of course, he became a great Florida Gator. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a Gator fan, but that's okay. I still like players. And I'm a big Tim Tebow fan. We can talk about that forever as well.
Dave, don't worry. Everybody can't be perfect.
Well, that's very true, Mitchell Gunner. That's very true. So, but anyway, he's got his own show. It's called Z and Tuck and Z. However we want to do it. He's out in Arizona actually watching.
Oh, great.
So
we've got some
people,
family in Arizona too.
There you go. So I am sure at one time that he would love probably to have you on as well. So Vincent Tucker, welcome in. Mike Elf says, always watching our next Congresswoman.
Oh, hey, Mike. Good to see you, buddy. That is a great American and patriot right there.
And that sounds awesome. Ronnie Sartain, I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes, Ronnie.
He says, how long does it take a new representative to learn the system, how the system works in D.C.?
Oh, I can tell you from experience, it's probably about 4 to 5 years before you really, truly understand how the system works, who the players are, how to avoid the pitfalls. And really, if you're not playing the political games that they all play and they try to force on new members, if you effectively are working around that, it takes a good bit. So a new freshman congressman or woman would take about 4 to 5 years to really learn the ropes.
Wow.
And I think that's, again, why our candidacy is so important, because we won't have that learning curve. And it's so important, especially in light of all the very serious challenges that we have going on in our country right now. We need someone who can hit the ground running day one.
Absolutely. My sister says, no, don't take no offense, Mitchell. She says, cats better looking than the guys, brother. So,
Thanks,
all right, there you go. Carlton Jones is watching. Sheila Campbell Arnett says hello from Ocala.
Hey, Sheila. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in.
Ronnie Sartain says, Miss Cat, are you ready to step in on day one?
Ronnie, you know we are. We are going to get to work day one. We don't know anything but work, and we are going to get the job done for the people of the 3rd Congressional District day one.
Absolutely. That is great to hear. Our esteemed sheriff must be on. I didn't see him. Is he on there, Mr. Gordon Smith?
I believe so, and also his wife, Stephanie.
And Stephanie's on. Well, hello. You want to say hello to the
Hey,
sheriff?
Sheriff. Hey, Stephanie. Good to see you guys.
Leanne says she'll still claim me. Yeah, well, I don't know after tonight's show. Kimberly Dawn Mims says, hello, Cat.
Hey, Aunt Kim. That's my aunt.
Oh, that's your aunt. Okay. Dave Hill says, we need a real woman in Congress who will represent the American people.
Oh, Dave, that is also a great man, great patriot, served our country 26 years in the Air Force. Great man, and he has served veterans in this area for a long, long time. Wow. And I'm proud to call him a friend and a supporter. And thank you for tuning in, Dave, and say hey to Miss Barbara for me.
Absolutely. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Daphne Rachel Ariel?
Yes.
Yep. Says hi, Cat, from Daphne and Frank.
Oh, they actually live right down the road.
Do they?
They do. They do.
Okay.
Daphne and Frank are great folks, great supporters. They've been with us from the very beginning, and we're huge Ted Yoho supporters, and they're all around great people.
Again, welcome to On the Spot with David Rodgers. I got Mr. Mitchell Gunner, Mr. Dave Holland with me, and this beautiful lady to my right is Miss Kat Kamek, running for the 3rd Congressional District seat. That's going to be left vacant by Ted Yoho. So let's get down to some serious questions. You ready?
I'm ready.
You're ready. Okay.
I'm ready.
I know you were. I can just see it in your eyes right there that you're born ready. So I'm going to start off with sort of a simple question for you. What are your most significant accomplishments while working with Congressman Ted Yoho?
Whew, so
she's like, okay, sort of easy, Dave, right? Yeah.
How much time do we have?
You got plenty.
So I just have to say, our team, Team Yoho, was an incredible, incredible team. And I'm so blessed that so many of our original team members, Jessica Northley, Dorothy Richardson, Dave Hill, Patrick Miller, they're all with us in support of our campaign. And there is no I when it came to our team. I mean, every issue was really a team effort. But I'd have to say, of the ones that I really had spearheaded personally and had the support of the congressman was definitely the 4 VA clinics that we had secured the appropriations in 2015 and then worked from the time that we got the funds appropriated into the actual design, technical evaluation boards, all of the very long process of requesting for proposals and actually delivering the clinics themselves. It's a very long, complicated process. And we were able to do 4 new VA clinics in the district, one in Clay County, which will actually be seeing its first patients in September.
Really?
Of this year. It is located on 400 College Drive. And I'm just so very, very proud of that particular clinic because there were so many hurdles that we had to overcome, a lot of obstacles locally that we had to overcome. And it was just sheer will that we were able to overcome that. And so I'm very particularly proud of that one, but also the 2 VA clinics that we have coming here in Gainesville, and then the new super clinic that is being built in Ocala, and that will be a 49,000 square foot super clinic in Ocala to serve that area. And that is on top of the existing facilities that we have here already. Vision 8, the South Georgia, North Florida healthcare system for the VA is actually the largest VA healthcare system in the country.
Is that right?
Yes. And so we've had tremendous experience working with the VA, navigating the VA, and it really takes, again, that experience of working through the VA bureaucracy to understand why appeals are getting held up, why comp and pen evaluations are so sometimes tedious or weird, why you need those second opinions, how you can navigate that. So I would say those 4 clinics would have to be on the top of my list. I'm also very proud of the work that we did with Project Putnam. Congressman Yoho had tasked me with crafting a program that would pull Putnam County off of all the bad lists of the state. So how do we rebuild infrastructure? How do we recover all of the funds that were due from all of the hurricanes that were outstanding, that were backlogged and stuck with FEMA? How do we get rural broadband deployed into this community? How do we help the local school board elevate their graduation rates? All these things that really require a tremendous group effort of stakeholders, but it just requires a guiding hand to deliver that. And so Project Putnam is what we crafted, and it has been tremendously successful. So many important stakeholders were a part of that, and the results have been outstanding. The graduation rate in 2016 was 54.6. Today it is over 83%.
Wow.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
We were able to deliver a major project to the county that was $150 million in capital investment with over 100 permanent jobs. We have delivered when it comes to wastewater systems, potable water systems, fixing these root issues that have gone on forever and ever and ever.
Right.
Because people just want to treat a symptom. They don't want to treat the root cause. They just want to put patches on everything.
Right.
And our goal was, how do we get in there and fix it? Because you have to have that core infrastructure in a community for it to grow and prosper. And so Project Putnam was really a pilot program of how can we take a community and turn it around while keeping that same character, same history in place, and that same personality that makes that community so special.
Right.
So Project Putnam would be probably my second baby that I'm so proud of. And then third, the work that we did with the North Central Florida Human Trafficking Task Force. I'll never forget the day I was in Washington, D.C. Congressman Yoho popped his head in and said, I want to do something on human trafficking. Call everyone.
Call everyone.
Call everyone. And from that, Congressman Yoho was very adamant about bringing all of the different groups and entities and agencies that were working on this issue together, because so often we see people operating in silos.
Right.
And oftentimes it's about who gets the credit. Well, Congressman Yoho didn't care about who got the credit. He just wanted to see progress being made, because the issue of human trafficking is a scourge on our society.
It is.
And it's happening in every community. It's happening in our backyards. And some people didn't want to admit that. But when you bring everyone together, you start seeing we do have a problem, but we do have the tools and the people here that can fix it.
Right.
And so I say the work that we've done there in helping educate the community on human trafficking issues, helping bring awareness, and giving resources to different entities, whether it's nonprofit groups or training for first responders to help recognize the signs. In particular, we launched a curriculum within the paramedic program in Alachua County, and they now have training when it comes to recognizing the signs of human trafficking when they respond to calls.
Right.
All those things were things that, even if one person was saved from that situation, it is 100% worth it.
You know, you were talking, and now some great points that you brought up, and of course you've been involved in quite a few things, and we've did a little bit of research on you, and that's just three of the things that you were involved in. You were involved in a lot more.
Everything you read.
No, it's all good, I promise you. I want to go back to the VA thing a minute, because I'm a veteran myself, so is Mr. Dave Holland.
Thank you.
And thank you. I know that right now, I guarantee you, I probably got a torn meniscus in my knee. So I made an appointment at the VA in Gainesville. I work in Lake City. So my appointment is not till the 14th. Now, this happened a couple of weeks ago, so I'm having to wait 3 weeks for an appointment. And I think this is where you were saying about these newer facilities opening up. So if me and Mr. Dave Holland living in Stark and Lottie, are we still going to be viable to go to Gainesville, because that's who we're out of, or are we going to be able to go to Clay, or are we going to be able to go to one of the newer facilities?
You'll be able to access either.
Okay.
The whole system with the VA and what we've been working on, and again, this is why it's so important to have that background knowledge of how the system works. Unfortunately, the databases don't talk to each other.
Yes.
DOD does not send your information and your paperwork to the VA. And that's just a simple fix, that no one really thinks about.
Right.
And so our goal is to make this as seamless a process as possible. For you guys, Lottie, it's probably going to be quicker to go to 400 College Drive.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
sometimes heading through Waldo and getting through Gainesville traffic isn't the most convenient thing in the world. So you're going to have options. The goal is to make sure that you have access as soon as possible, that there is none of these crazy long wait lists that we've seen over the years across the country.
Yes.
And I know that there's been some proposals that have come out the Choice Act, for example, that allowed folks that if they weren't able to be seen within, I think it was 60 days, 30 days or 60 days, they could go get a voucher and take it to a private practice.
Right.
The problem and the rub became the private practice wasn't getting their reimbursements from the VA, so they stopped accepting the payments and stopped seeing patients. And that's that bureaucracy that we've got to fix. So when they open up in September in Clay County, I would encourage you to get up there and reach out, and we'll get you connected with Mr. Dave.
All right,
I'll get you guys in there, because it's a shame that you have to wait that long. And our veterans deserve the very best care in the world. We should not do anything to stand in the way of getting our veterans the care and treatment that they need and they deserve.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And it sounds like you're going to really be working hard on that. And I want to go back to the human trafficking thing a little bit. I know that there for a while, again, if you watched our show, me and Mr. Mitchell Gunner, Mr. Byron Bagwell, Mr. Holland, Mr. Heater, we really touched on this human trafficking thing for quite a bit, because it just seems a few months back where it was really prevalent. I know it still is, but it was really, you would hear about one every other day. It seemed like, and like I said, it was happening in our backyard, and we really, really touched on that subject hard. And that's one of the things that we were trying to get out to everybody, awareness and things like that. And it sounds like that's one of your platforms possibly that you're going to be running on as well, trying to get things in place so these kind of things are at least avoidable. But you're not going to stop everything 100%. We'd love to, but I know but if you can get some things in place to be able to do that, I think it will at least alleviate some of the cause.
Absolutely. I mean, and you hit it right on the head. This is happening in our backyards. There was a case a couple of years ago where deputies found a woman chained to a toilet in a bathroom, and she had been kidnapped. She was from Lake City, and she'd been kidnapped, and she was being trafficked for several weeks before deputies actually were able to get to her. And it was because of her cell phone. They were able to track the GPS on her cell phone. We've seen situations here in Gainesville where there have been high schoolers that are being conditioned and coached to recruit their friends and fellow students. And they're getting paid for each student they bring to these parties. And these kids get drugged, they get raped. It is terrible. And the most shocking statistic, I think, of all is for runaways. Within 48 hours, a runaway is most likely to be picked up by a trafficker. And it's not just the sex trafficking, and it certainly doesn't just affect the girls. It is also boys that are trafficked.
Yes.
But there's also the labor trafficking that happens. And that can be very, very dangerous because so many people are scared to speak out about it, particularly in rural areas. And we've seen situations of that here in our area. And the thing that is most important is that, again, you have that hub of resources. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from state attorneys' offices or prosecutors, hey, we have a case, we have a lead, we think it's solid, but then they need that victim to be treated as a victim.
Right.
And there has to be resources there to support them. Because without that testimony, the case falls apart. And there was a case here in Gainesville where the charges went from trafficking to kidnapping to racketeering. And and that person who did that is actually free today and living in our community. And it's just one of those things. We have over 22 million people in modern day slavery today. And this is not a Republican issue. It is not a Democrat issue. It is not a white or black issue. This is a human issue. And it's just something that I think we have to provide the resources, be aware. The more that you are aware and you can recognize the signs. And I encourage everyone, please check out the Blue Campaign. Homeland Security does a great job of promoting the training and awareness. When you're in airports, when you're at rest stops, look for these signs and you can actually save a life. And you would be surprised at how many victims are amongst us in everyday life.
That's great. I want to get to some of our comments here. I know Mr. Mitchell Gunner had a question, and I've got several more questions for you. Let's see. Kat will get their work done, and she will be honest and fair. Chrissy Thompson. Do you know Chrissy from Downtown Grill?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you really?
Yes.
I do trivia there on Thursday night. When we're open, I host trivia there on Thursday night.
We would love to come do trivia.
Absolutely. We would
love to come do trivia.
We would love to have you. As soon as this all opens back up, we promise we're going to get trivia back. That's on Thursday nights at 7:30. But
we
Chrissy
love the downtown grill.
she says, hello, Kat, from the downtown grill in beautiful Star, Florida.
We love it. I love the downtown grill. We had an event there.
Yes, you did. Yeah. We were going to come. Mitchell did.
He did.
But we had a show to do that night, so we were trying to do the show. We were trying to get updates from Mitchell. Mitchell finally came in and said that went over really well. So Susie Ponder Ludwig says, hello from Keystone Heights.
Oh, hey, Susie. We love you guys. We love Keystone Heights. Thank you for everything that you do.
Yeah, Daphne said, absolutely. We got, like I said, Austin Stevens and David Kilgore is watching. Do you know Steve Horde from Lake Butler? Coach Horde? Steve Horde? Yeah, Steve Horde is watching.
Hey, Steve.
There you go. Brittany Walsh says, if you're elected to represent Florida's 3rd Congressional District, will you renew Representative Yoho's efforts to help our veterans via the Wingman Act?
Yes. And hey, Brittany, I hope you're doing well. So Brittany and I actually worked together in Congressman Yoho's office. She was a wonderful legislative assistant, and she worked very hard on a lot of the veterans issues. Wingman Act was something that really was derived from the casework that our team was doing.
Right.
And so many times we would get a case and a box wouldn't be checked, or someone had maybe filled out the wrong information on the wrong thing. And as veterans, I'm sure you all have seen the paperwork, it can just kind of get a little bit bureaucratic. And you get it submitted, and then it just waits, and it waits. And we kept hearing these disturbing reports about, hey, can you call and check on the status of my appeal or my case or my appointment? And the main office would pull it, say, oh, well, you forgot to check this box, and they would move your file to the end of the line. And you could lose months and even potentially years. And when Congressman Yoho and our team found out about it, Congressman Yoho was outraged, rightfully so. And so Brittany and our team came up with a fantastic idea of giving read-only access to congressional offices, because we have our constituents fill out Privacy Act forms, which allows the caseworkers in the office to advocate and inquire on their behalf. So it's a very secure process. They're on secured networks. And this bill would allow them to go in and check on their file and the status and say, we missed this box, or we need this piece of documentation. So you wouldn't risk losing your place in line. It would be able to actually speed things up, because the way the system currently works is a congressional staffer will call the congressional liaison or the St. Petersburg and check on a status of a case. And that interaction takes time. And this would be a way for us to free up the St. Petersburg office, all the VAs, the VSOs, and the congressional offices, because we'd be able to go in and have read-only access and tell veterans in real time, hey, this is where you're at. Without the delay of this is where we're going and this is what you've missed, or this is what's happening. So absolutely, to answer that question, 100% would love to sponsor the Wingman Act. I don't foresee much success happening legislatively this year. It's a presidential year, and not many session days are left. So if it doesn't pass this year, I would love to champion that bill in the 117th Congress. And hello, and I hope to talk to you soon, Britt.
And Brittany, by the way, you got a pretty dog. You got a good-looking dog.
She has really cute dogs.
Yeah, she does. I've seen the one right here, so there you go. Daphne said non-VA community care can schedule possibly a sooner appointment.
Yes.
Okay, so there you go. Dale Woodruff, and I was just telling your campaign manager there that I did see more starting to happen, but Dale Woodruff says, need more cat signage in Bradford County. But I've started seeing some cat signage. I live in Lottie, and I was telling Davis I was leaving my house today to come here to your house to do your interview. I started seeing a lot more. So I'm assuming maybe there's some spots that y'all still haven't quite hit yet. So
this is a family affair for us. My husband, he has done all of Ted Yoho's signs since 2014.
Wow.
All the way through, and now he's doing all the signs, and he's a first responder. He's a firefighter, SWAT medic. So on his days off, he's building signs and delivering them and installing them. But when we announced there was such an influx of requests.
Yeah.
We got them out, and we've had so many requests we have not been able to keep up with them. So if there's anyone that is interested in helping my husband with signs, please let us know. We will get signs out. We've had, like I said, hundreds of requests, and so we are working very hard and diligently. But he is a very busy first responder, so we'll get them to you as soon as possible.
And thank him for his service too as a first responder, by the way. And I know that the sheriff, we've had him on our show before, and the sheriff will be sitting there while we're doing the show, and he goes, "Yep, there's another one that needs a sign. Yeah, there's another one that needs a sign." By the time he gets done, there's a notebook full of addresses. Like, David, look at there, man. There's another 35 signs I got to get. So I'm assuming it's the same with you as well.
Oh, yeah. And you get the text messages, the phone calls, the Facebook messages, and we just try to consolidate them all. But if anybody has a great sign location, feel free to message us here on the show, or you can send us an email at kat@catforcongress.com, and or Matt@catforcongress.com. He's our sign guy and my husband, and we'll get a sign delivered.
And you can message us too as well, right there, Kat, on the spot, 32091@gmail.com, and we will make sure that we get that information to Kat as well, and she'll be able to get you a sign. Now, I know are you putting up some of the bigger signs?
Yes.
The ones that sit there on the corner, you know what I mean?
So my husband does all of the big road signs, the 4x8s, the 4x4s.
Right.
And then in the city of Gainesville, you're prohibited for any sign bigger than 6 square feet.
Right.
And then yard signs, we have an army that has been delivering yard signs. We have actually delivered.
Yeah.
We've delivered more than, I'm so proud of my team. They've delivered more than 800 yard signs that have been requested, and they are actually in people's yards. You won't see a lot of our signs in right-of-ways unless supporters put them there. Our team doesn't. I'm a very frugal candidate, and I know exactly how much each sign costs. So anytime that I see a sign that I know is going to get picked up by the road department, I try to pick it up if it's ours, and I'll say, "Does anybody want this in your yard?"
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I love that.
In fact, I text. I had texted an opponent of ours, and I said, "Someone wants this sign moved. I know how much the sign. It was a yard sign,
right? And
I said they want it moved. I'm going to move it down the street for you because I don't want the road department to take it." And trash it. Because it's just, it's something so something so small, but candidates work very hard to raise money, and you see a lot of funny business happening with them. So
yes,
I'm particularly sensitive to that and making sure that. Heck, I've even seen my husband straightening other people's signs.
And there's nothing wrong with that, Then that's exactly right. It takes money to run a campaign like this, and it takes time, and it takes hard work, and it takes. Well, I heard you say earlier, footwork, a lot of foot traffic, to get this done. And, I applaud every candidate that's out here trying to run for office that is doing that, because that is no easy work whatsoever.
Yeah. No, it is not. It is not an easy thing. If you're doing it the right way, you are going to be exhausted, tired, frustrated, sometimes disappointed, but we know exactly why we're doing what we're doing, and so every day we just feel that momentum, and we get excited every day that we get closer to election.
I know every sign counts.
It does.
You want it to count. If the road department picks it up, you lose that count.
Exactly.
Unless he puts it in his yard.
Exactly. And that's why having over 800 yard signs in people's physical yards that they have requested, to me, is so important. Because, people will throw them in the right-of-ways and stuff like that, and the road department comes and picks them up. And that's just, to me, such a waste of money.
It is.
And
you're looking at, when you have one of those signs, yard signs that are in the right-of-way and it does pick up, you figure in your time getting out there plus the cost of the sign, you're looking at about $10 per sign when it goes missing.
And that adds up.
Yes, that adds up quickly. Noah Gibson says, "Hi guys, talking to us and another candidate to hear." He says, "Very nice." Deborah Bearden said, "Hey, beautiful lady."
Oh, hey, hi. Thank you.
Chrissy, of course, at the Downtown Grill says, "Love Kat and her team." Charles Zipper lives in Lake Butler. I've known Charles. Charles comes to trivia and is a big Lake Butler fan over there. So hello, Charles. Thank you for tuning in. Brittany Walsh is still on with us. Savannah Northley, do you know her?
I do. I do.
A lot of people here that you know and are well familiar with. So
Hi, Savannah.
we're glad that y'all are on the show and watching. This is a great forum for y'all to be able to hear Kat and what she's running for and her platforms and the things that's really important to her. So again, we want to thank you for inviting us to your beautiful home here and letting us do this with you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for coming down.
Brandon Ludwig says, just realized I was hearing from the voice of the Tornadoes from one announcer to another. Awesome job, Mr. David. Keep up the great work, Kat. You do know I'm the voice of the Bradford Tornadoes, right?
Do you do the...
I do the play.
Almost.
I
feel like you got to do it now.
Okay, I will. I tell you, we're gonna put me on the spot. Yeah. Mitchell Gunner has been up in the football in the press box with me. Do you know Kevin Howell? Do you know Kevin Howell over in Stark? He works over at the correction.
The name is very, very familiar.
He's a correction training officer now, and he's my color analyst. And I know that Mitchell Gunner and probably some of our viewers probably think that I was going to have a heart attack a lot of times because I get so excited. But I'll give you just a little something.
All right.
So here we go. All right. And Negro Davis just intercepted the pass. He's going to go 95 yards, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a tornado touchdown. I lost the tornado there a little because I was getting a little too excited, but that's the way I get. I mean, even on the radio there.
I love it. I love it. Do you need a glass of water?
No, I'm good here. But anyway.
My mic peaked out right there.
Yeah. So I work for, we actually work, we do the school functions, but I actually work for Chuck Kramer at WAG, Eagle Country 106.3. So Chuck is our boss doing all that. And I've been doing it for 5 years now. You know, Mr. Terry Vaughn, of course, a great voice of the Tornadoes. Learned from him. And he was probably one of the best that I've ever seen do that. Mm-hmm. And when they was looking for a voice, I was still working at FedEx. And they asked me if I wanted to do it. A guy named Billy Rayburn pushed the issue and got me in there, and I've loved it ever since. Probably one of my favorite gigs.
I love that.
Yep. So just a little tornado touchdown.
I love it. Well, and of course, in our area especially.
Yes.
High school football.
Ooh.
Serious business now.
Yeah.
Serious business. And we've had folks visit from Washington, D.C. and New York, reporters, and they want to get a feel for the district and what it's like. And we'll always take them to a Friday night football game, and their eyes just grow into saucers. And they can't get over, it's like, the whole town is here.
Yes.
Right. It's serious business.
Yeah, and if you've been following the Tornadoes, we've been doing pretty good here the last few years. We've got, do you know Coach Brian Tomlinson? Do you know Brian Tomlinson? Brian Thompson from Lake Butler, but he lives in, he still lives in Lake Butler, but he used to coach over at Lake Butler with Coach Hoare. And now he's our football coach. And since 2016, we made the playoffs every year. We were not this close back in 2017 from going to the state championship game. Reigns beat us that year. And then last year, we were yay close to being in the regional final, and Bowles beat us up there. And I tell you, we've had some great football teams, and it's fun to do that when you're winning.
Yeah.
You know, it's when you're, not having such a great year that you still got to keep the enthusiasm, but we still do it. Tough. So Brandon knows exactly where I'm coming from here. So he just realized he's a good guy.
He is a great guy.
So
we love Brandon, and he's a great member of our team.
Yeah, so you just realized that, right, Brandon? Okay, I got you. Jessica Northfleet says, hope you're doing well. Mr. Dwight Allen, one of what we call one of our brothers, him and myself and Mr. Byron Bagwell, Mr. Mitchell Gunner, we call ourselves a little brotherhood. So anyway, David Theus is watching. Do you know David?
Hey, David, that is actually one of our opponents.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for David. David, I last saw you in Crescent City, and you have been working your tail off, and I hope I get to see you on the campaign trail soon. He's doing a great job.
There you go. Deborah Bearden said, you and your team is amazing. Anthony Zona, yes, thank you for doing that. I'm assuming she was going to do that as well. CapForCongress.com/donate.
Yes, if you are interested in supporting our campaign, because obviously campaigns come down to two things: time and money.
Yeah.
And every dollar counts. Whether it's $5, $50, $500, $5,000, every donation is uniquely special and meaningful because you would not believe how expensive campaigns can be. You know, a yard sign.
Yes.
When I think about a yard sign, I think about the $3.69, you know, for the sign itself, and then the stake, and then this, and then that, and it all adds up. So every donation is meaningful. So thank you for that.
Well, I've never read on the platform that you're running on, but running for a local election, it is very time consuming and very expensive.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, she needs some sign makers. There you go. I just figured I'd throw that out here. Susie Ponder Ludwig said, could you share your educational background just a little bit? I was going to ask you that, but while she's got it right here, we might as well go ahead and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have my undergraduate degree in international relations, international business. I minored in economics. I actually had a professor in college who his name was Professor Kishore Kulkarni. And he has become really an expert on free market economics and really inspired my love for free markets. And so that's why I ended up minoring in economics. But then later on, I went on to get my master's at the United States Naval War College. And so I got my master's in national defense and strategic studies with an emphasis in information operations and counterterrorism.
Let me write this down. God.
That was so awesome.
That is awesome, man. You got me chill. I've got chill bumps on my arms.
I want to jump
Are
up
you
and
serious?
salute you.
I want to salute you too.
No.
Wow.
I was very, very fortunate and honored to attend the War College as a civilian, as a congressional staffer.
Yes.
For my class, I was the only congressional staffer and civilian, and it was really, really humbling to be learning from the best of the best. One of my professors was actually the former commander of Guantanamo, and he was the one that stood up Camp X-Ray when we first began the global war on terror. And you know, hearing from him firsthand about Camp X-Ray and detainees, and I mean, it was very, very interesting. But the War College presents you with three core components: the history of war. And you're going all the way back to the Babylonians, right? And you're learning about all the different things and the evolution of insurgency and where we are today, because it's so important that you have that basic fundamentals, because today war is not just in a physical space. We now have cyber, and eventually, looking down the road, unfortunately, we need to prepare for space.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really given me a foundation and appreciation for the history, the fundamentals, the philosophy of defense, war, and security. And then, of course, we do a lot. One of the things that I really enjoyed was the planning aspects, acquisitions, pre-positioning, deployments, all the planning that goes into an effective theater engagement.
Right.
And something that no one ever talks about is war termination. Because going in, you need to have your exit plan.
Right.
And unfortunately, legislators don't have that experience. They appropriate funds, they authorize war sometimes, unfortunately, and that's another thing, the AUMF. That's a problem that we need to address in this country. But you go into these conflicts and they become never ending because there's no termination plan.
Right.
There's no exit strategy, and we end up doing this nation building, which is beyond the realm of the Constitution.
Feel like we're going through that right now.
We are.
Wow, yes.
We 100% are. And so that was something that was very important to me to learn and get my degree, because I think to be an effective legislator, you have to, and policymaker, you have to have that basis of understanding.
Right.
And that comes at a very high level. So the people that I was studying with, they were captains, they were lieutenant colonels, they were the really, really very respected. And we studied with Marines, Navy, Air Force, Army, and it was an incredible experience. And I have such a tremendous respect for the planners, our men and women in uniform. And I was particularly tickled because General Mattis actually handed me my diploma.
Is that right?
Wow.
Wow.
I feel like
So
I'm
much.
talking to a Jedi.
That's exactly right. I was thinking the same thing.
I wish that y'all could see Dave behind the camera. He's doing kung fu moves.
Yes, he is. And Mitchell's over here just laughing his tail off, isn't
Mitchell is bright red and just...
Yes, he is bright red. I've got a couple of questions, and then we'll get back to our audience. As a matter of fact, we've got a great audience. Thank y'all guys for joining in on the spot with David Rodgers. Usually on Tuesdays and Saturdays, we've got a special edition. We're trying to get, as I told you earlier, we're trying to get all the candidates to do a little thing here with us. Yes, a bunch of smiles. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, I got you. I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, we're trying to get all our candidates to do this as well. It's really a great platform. It gets you out there, not only from our viewing audience, but your viewing audience, your people as well. Dave's people, Mitchell's people, and we share this thing, and a lot of different people get to hear, Kat or whatever candidate on here. And sometimes, we can do a little news report, but I don't think it's as personal. I think right here, it's a lot personable, with us. And you can open up and you can be yourself. And of course, that's what your voters and people that follow you want to see. I think it's just that personal thing with me, and most of the candidates that we've interviewed have said the same thing. So
I love this. This is a great format.
It is, and we think it is as well, and we think we have a great show, and we have a lot of people that tune into that as well, and we want to. It's our viewing audience. It's not about us. It's about our viewing audience. They're the ones that drive the whole show. So we just thank them for being there and being part of our audience. I want to get to a couple other questions here. I think you sort of answered this. So if I can combine two questions into one.
Absolutely.
What platform are you running on? And what issues are most important to you? I think you've touched that a little bit, but if you want to re-hit that.
So my platform is very simple. It's an America First platform. I am a constitutional conservative. And so putting America first means actually getting back to the basics of the Constitution, protecting our gun rights, protecting the unborn, standing with our president, supporting our police, our first responders, and our veterans, not avoiding the plague of our national debt as so many before us have done, but actually cutting spending, not just discretionary, but the mandatory spending that is eating us alive. So once and for all, addressing that fundamental issue of cutting our national debt and the deficit. So those are the very basic things that I am going after, because I think when people try to build on these huge platforms of very complicated things, they lose sight of the very fundamental issues that we need to take care of. And if we can get back to the basics in this country, so many of these problems that we're seeing in the daily news will go away.
That's a great answer.
Yeah,
Mitchell, it sounds really good to me. Mitchell, do you have a question?
Yes, this one's pretty easy probably for you to answer, but those who are receiving government assistance that are taking action of looting and burning down people's property, do you think they should lose their government assistance?
Yeah, I think that's a simple hell yes.
Okay, there you go. Yes, yes.
And that's the thing. The key word in there is if they're committing criminal actions, they are looting, they are burning, they are terrorizing. You see these videos of people not only destroying personal property, private property, but then they're assaulting people that are trying to defend their businesses.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that right there is a criminal act, and it should be punished as such. Peaceful assembly is a constitutional right, and that is a very, very big difference from what we have been seeing in Minneapolis. I think I saw over 700 buildings in Minneapolis have been burned.
Right.
And you see that first responders are being told to stand down.
Right.
Society as we know it is breaking down, and I am seeing this slide into socialism where the mob rule is starting to take over.
Yes.
And that's actually one of the reasons why I am in this fight, is because when my husband and I started having a conversation about children, I'm 32, and we said, we both want to have kids. do we really want to bring children into the world as we know it? And my husband, being a first responder and a SWAT medic, he sees people on their worst days.
Yeah.
He sees the toughest things that are happening. And we just kind of looked at each other and said, if we have an opportunity to make it right, we have to do that. And so that is why we're in this race. But I really do see this slide into socialism and what we're seeing playing out, the Chaz zone, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, which is just, I cannot believe how people have been so spineless in just rolling over and giving in to these demands that are quite frankly, it's un-American. This is not the America that I grew up in. This is not the America that I want my children to grow up in.
Exactly. And when we look at these things that are taking place, most of the time, these certain scenarios are done in blue cities and blue states.
Yes.
Because they don't have the gumption to stand up to them and say, hey, let's stop this, because they're more worried about getting their votes than they are actually the people who live in those places. And that's putting politics before people, and that is plain wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you were just talking, and you were talking about the Chaz Zone and things like that, and how about the tearing down of monuments and the destruction of monuments and the vandalism of monuments that portrayed our history, and they're just tearing these things down like it means nothing to them. And we all know where this is coming from. We all know who this is funded from and who's doing a lot of this. And I don't have to say anything here. Like I said, we all know where it's all coming from. But, if we erase history, Kat, we've said this on our show many a times, we tend to repeat it, don't we?
Well, and I mean, that's exactly it. Those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. And no one has said that the history of the United States is perfect. As with any nation in world history, there have been challenges. There have been travesties of justice. There have absolutely been black marks on everyone's history books.
Right.
But when you look at, and I hate to make this a Republican versus Democrat issue, but the Democrats were the party of slavery.
Right.
The Democrats were the ones that promoted Jim Crow laws. And now we're seeing Democrats that are trying to take these statues that they put up, and it doesn't mean that the problems are going to go away.
Right. Yes.
And that's the thing that just kills me. We're perpetuating this lawlessness and this mob rule.
Right.
But it's actually making the system and society and the communities weaker.
Right.
We're trying to erase history, and that is the first step as we continue this very dangerous slippery slope into socialism.
Right. And the thing is, what's next? That's the big question.
It's the gun grab.
We
the
went
gun
over
grab comes next.
Well, we went over to St. Augustine this past weekend, and we stayed 4 days. And I told the kids, I says, take in all you can. I says, who's to say they don't say, hey, we need to tear down this fort, because it was also used during the Civil War, not just by the Spanish and the French, but also by the Confederate Army.
Whisper that.
So,
Dave's getting nervous behind the camera.
Yeah.
Don't give anyone any ideas.
Any ideas.
But I mean, that's the type of things that you have to look at as a citizen and realize, hey, these people are out to destroy any type of history, like ISIS.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what they look like.
That is exactly what it is. And we're just in that period where there's this, I almost want to say, alternate reality that people are living in.
Well, that's a good term for it.
That's what I'm saying. It's like a lot of people are saying, or it seems like a lot of us are asleep. Mm-hmm. But really, and I'm one of them, it's like, I want to do something. I want to do something to help, to stop this mob rule or the direction that we're going in, and I don't have an answer.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because we're seeing post George Floyd's death, which everyone I've talked to, regardless of what you think of a guy,
right,
it shouldn't have happened.
No,
it
We
shouldn't.
can
No, it should have
all
not.
agree
We can
that it
let-
shouldn't have happened.
Exactly.
And there should have been swift action against the officers that did
Right.
that. And I can tell you as the wife of a first responder that those that serve honorably every single day, that put on a badge, there is nothing that they hate more than bad apples.
Oh, absolutely.
There is nothing more that they cannot stand than bad cops.
Right.
And so, absolutely, travesty. Did all of this have to happen?
No.
No. There was a much more productive way to go about this. And it was interesting because in our campaign, we have been very deliberate in launching and putting together coalitions because I subscribe to the theory that you don't know what you don't know. And anyone who thinks that they're the smartest person in the room should not be in a position of power.
Right.
So I wanted to put together a coalition of key people that had the industry knowledge on the issues that I really care about. And case in point was first responders. So we put together several different coalitions. The first responders came together. We have about 50 that represent each department in our district, both police and fire. And when we were chatting with them recently, I said, how has it been out and about since the death of George Floyd and all the national uprisings and unrest? And I can tell you that I was surprised to hear that more of our officers have seen people coming up to them saying, I'm so sorry that this is happening. This is
Yep.
not reflective of our community.
Yes.
Please please do not be afraid.
Right.
We have your back. And so that has been encouraging to hear. Unfortunately, it's not the case in other parts of the country,
Right.
which is all the more reason why our police and our first responders need our
Well, I
support
think the
more.
mob rule that you were talking about is taking advantage of our situation.
100%.
100%.
Definitely. I mean, they're just using that man's death, which is totally wrong. They should just let the judicial system
Do its
do its
thing.
job.
That's right.
And but this is not what they're about. They're about
This is not about
not
justice.
using.
No.
They're about using a
Crisis.
crisis by not
Yeah.
letting it go to
Never let a crisis
crisis
go
go
to
to
Go
waste.
to waste.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that is exactly what is going on.
Yeah, I mean, tell me, what does looting and rioting a Target have to do with? I mean, does that bring justice? No,
No.
it's ridiculous.
And you know, Kat, here's the funny thing, and we've talked about this on our show too, is, you know, you see these elderly people. I was watching after the Minneapolis thing first happened when they was burning and looting that place. What'd you say, over 700 buildings there? Is that
700 in Minneapolis.
lady lives right here just on the outside of the downtown area. She is handicapped, 80-year-old black lady, and she was in tears on the news, and it almost put me in tears. And she says, "What are y'all doing? You are destroying our neighborhoods. I can't even go to my local pharmacy to get the medicines that I need because you have destroyed it. Do you realize what you're doing?" And that is just so sad and so disheartening that an elderly lady that's probably worked all her life to get what she has, and now she has to face this kind of thing. And it's just, I don't know. We got to do something. And I don't see, tell me if you agree with me on this, I don't see a lot that's being done to try to gap this thing. Are you seeing anything that maybe I'm not seeing?
You know, when you look out west, and you see what's happening in Seattle, you know, and you see the mayor, you look in Minneapolis, and then you see their own city council, the mayor, the governor of the state, they're all saying we're going to defund the police, we're going to do this.
Right.
I mean, that's where it gets into a point where, you know what, this is a democratically held city. And a democratically controlled state. And this is what you get when you have these policies. Elections have consequences, and these are the consequences of those elections.
That's exactly
But you
right.
know one thing they won't do? Defund their own personal security.
They
Security.
will
That's
never.
right. Yes.
And that takes us to, that's a perfect segue, because one of the biggest issues that I have with government is the hypocrisy of government.
Government.
On all issues.
Yeah.
They are continually the biggest hypocrites in the room.
Yeah.
Tell me why government will classify bacteria on Mars as life, but not the fetus in the womb.
Don't get it either. Yeah.
Tell me why the DOJ will classify a pregnant woman who is murdered as a double homicide, but it's not murder if she does it.
That's it.
Yeah.
The hypocrisy of government never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah.
And that is what we're going up there to fix.
There you go. I love that. I love that. Again, if you're just tuning in to On the Spot with David Rodgers, we got a special Friday night edition. Kat Kamick, who's running for the vacant seat, should I say, or will be vacant seat of Ted Yoho. We are in her lovely home. Again, thank you for inviting us to your home.
Thank
Very
you.
lovely. I know people can see the background back here. Everything is brick here. She loves brick.
I love stone.
Stone. Brick. Stone.
Well, it's part of my DNA, you know, being
Yeah,
in
it
the
is.
monument business and sandblasting, you know, it's granite. Everything is very much deliberate.
Yeah.
We have a
Even the filling.
Look at this. Yeah, Dave, you're going to have to hold the camera.
Can I?
Yeah,
You
please
can,
do.
you can.
Please do that if you can. I want you to look at that.
I'll have to give you all the grand tour.
Yeah, the grand tour. There you go. But anyway, getting on to some other things here. We got a lot of viewers on. I want to get to some of their questions here. Brandon Ludwig said, "Glad to have your support, Miss Deborah Bearden. Keystone proud. Love Keystone Heights. Brandon
Keystone Heights.
Byron Bagwell lives over there. Mitchell lives really close over there as well. Let's see. Roy Jackson's watching. Noah Gibson, you're going to have to tell Miss Cat why the show pony. So that's what they call me on the show. The show pony.
The show
pony. So that's we won't even get into that, Cat.
Yeah.
So Noah says, "Sorry, I stole your line, Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Bagwell." And I knew that. Do you know Vicky Sullivan?
No, I don't think you
Oh yeah, she's on watching.
Hi,
So
Vicky.
how about Carol Morrell?
Yes. Hi, Carol.
She says, "Hi, Kat. You're beautiful inside and out. You will be a breath of fresh air to our Congress."
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Carol.
That's all right.
Carol, again, an amazing woman and patriot. Love her.
Good deal. Dave Holland Jr., Dave's son, is watching us.
All right.
There you go. Brittany Walsh, Laura Bolster Jackson misses you.
Oh, Laura. Yes, Laura.
Yeah, Laura.
Hey, La.
Hey, Laura. Okay. But I think they're saying they miss all of each other. Dwight Allen says he loves what you said. We got this thing. I was trying to push it, and we used to call ourselves the American Party. It's a group of us where there's about 20 of us in this little group. And right, Mitchell? About 20 of us or so. We call ourselves the American Party. We wanted to push that. And I love President Trump's platform on Make America Great Again. Yeah. But to me, you just see if you agree with me here. To make America great again, don't we have to put America first
And
to
that's
do
exactly
that?
It.
And I heard you say that.
It's America
loved it.
First. An America First platform is what we're running on because it is the only way that we can get back to the basics that made this country what it is. And I like to say, people ask me all the time, they say, "Are you a registered Republican or a registered Democrat?" And I said, "Well, I'm an American who happens to be running as a Republican." And when you look at our signs and all of our branding and our literature, I say I'm a constitutional conservative because I'm an American first. And I believe that the conservative principles and values are what make our country great.
Right.
And if you adhere to those and you come from a position of the Constitution and you vote from the basis of the Constitution, you can't be wrong.
Mr. Byron Bagwell's got to be loving you. Daniel, when you're thinking the same thing when I looked at you. I was going to say, I don't know what Byron's on, but Byron's going to be loving you because he considers himself the same way. I think we all do. Yeah. The constitutionalists,
It's the roadmap that keeps us having freedoms.
Exactly.
Why do they want to tear it down? I
don't know. I don't get it.
Well, and that's some of the frustrating things that I've seen up in Washington because I've seen up there, when you get to that echelon of government, it's not Republicans versus Democrats. It's the party of big government versus little government. And those two things are so evident and clear. And so people are always talking about the fight and the battle between the two parties. But while this has been happening, we've been forgetting that we're Americans first. And if we come at it from that way, where we stop hyphenating all of America, that is when we can actually come together and unite. And there's strength in unity. And I'm telling you, China, Russia, all these entities that are bad players that back in the 50s and 60s said we're going to destroy you from within,
Yeah.
do it through your education system. They're loving all of this right
Love
now.
it.
And we've said that too, and in that
Well, tell her what your daughter had wrote
Oh yeah, about
about the teachings in school, because
Yeah.
they won't touch it because they're afraid that it may stir up something in the school.
this is my 23-year-old daughter that's going to get her education, a degree in education.
Yeah.
And she said that on the other show the other night, and boy, she had a point on that, didn't she, Mitchell?
Oh, she was dead on.
She was
And
dead on it.
that's what's happening in our regular school system and also in our colleges.
Yeah. And see, people are more concerned about being politically correct than actually just doing what's right and being kind. And I think that there is strength in being compassionate. I think there is strength in being kind and being just a good neighbor and a good fellow American. And that has been lost in the big national dialogue.
Yeah.
It has.
I want to. Did you have the ribs over at when you was over at the Downtown Grill? Did you have the
I
ribs?
didn't. I
Okay.
haven't had them yet.
Well, Mr.
Man.
Dwight Allen,
I
our
had
brother.
the chicken wings, though.
Did you? They're
They're
good.
good.
Yes, they
They're
are.
good.
Mr. Dwight Allen is related to Chrissy,
Oh, yeah.
and we can all brothers here. He is an amazing cook, and his ribs are outstanding.
God.
And you got to have some of those at some point. So I'll have Mr.
Okay.
Dwight Allen make sure he makes you some. But he's saying he loves your answers. And then he's got a question. He says, do you believe corrupt politicians need to be prosecuted?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, one of the very first, actually not one of, the very first bill that we ever introduced, Congressman Yoho introduced, and there's a picture that I have of us dropping it that day. It was called the Trust Act, and it was trust restored to U.S. taxpayers. And it said very simply, it was a 2-page bill, that if a member of Congress committed a felony while serving, they forfeited the taxpayer-funded portion of their benefits. Very simple. If you're a member of the military, you get a dishonorable discharge, you lose your benefits. Same thing on the first responder side. So why should that same principle not apply to members of Congress?
Right.
Right?
Wow.
Our own leadership said that they wouldn't bring it up because they thought it would give ammunition to Democrats to come after us. And again, don't we want to get rid of the bad apples?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And
Yes.
so 100%.
Bad apples don't want to go.
Exactly. So something as simple as that we couldn't get past. And I think that speaks to the highest level of protectionism and corruption.
Right.
And people, I have seen people with the best of intentions go to Washington and they become corrupted. And if you're not playing into that system, you're not feeding into it, they want to get rid of you as quickly as possible.
Which is very sad.
It is.
It is sad. All right. Brittany Walsh says, and sort of a long question here, understanding the extreme actions some are taking, do you support any reforms to address the underlying issues that the peaceful protesters are speaking up against? For example, she said, additional training on mental health issues, de-escalation, similar to training on the human trafficking.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. I think that there is an opportunity. Yeah, and that is a long one. And,
Yeah.
and thank you for the question, Britt. The thing that we have seen repeatedly, and we saw this in Congressman Yoho's office, and this was something that I oversaw. I was charged with the oversight of this, was our grant program. We had police departments and fire departments that were continually reaching out for federal grant programs. Now, these programs have typically been the same type of criteria, covering the same type
Right.
of programming. Like a COPS grant, for example, would supply the funding for a position, a staff position, for 3 years, and then that municipality would take on the burden of providing that salary. And so it was a staffing grant. There was not a tremendous need, or not a need, there was not a tremendous amount of resources when it came to specialized training for victims counseling, domestic violence, things like that. And when it came to the human trafficking issue, we saw a lot of really mismatched programs that really kind of missed the mark. And you would have to really reach in order to nail it. And so, yes, there is 100% a need for more training, more funding, And so when people say we need to defund the police, I said, oh my gosh, that's the most asinine thing I've ever heard. If anything, we need to catch up, because all these departments have been on shoestring budgets.
Right.
They have been, robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's actually why we formed the Grit Foundation, because we saw such a lack of resources available to our local departments. And the strings that come with these federal programs are ridiculous. You would have to hire 2 people just to manage the grant compliance, and then you have all these strings and requirements that come along with it. So it became, this round robin in the end. And so that is why we started the Grit Foundation, and I know that was one of the things you wanted to talk about.
Absolutely, led right into that question.
But to Brittany's question, yes, we need to actually, rather than defund police, we need to increase funding so that there are resources available for these departments.
Right.
Because anymore, and again, as the wife of a first responder, I have heard and seen my husband respond to calls that are they're everything from domestic violence to deaths, shootings, family squabbles. People have started using 911 as your primary care. I can't tell you how many times he's responded to a call because someone got a bug bite. And it's just that has become an abused system. And so we have to get smarter about how we respond to these calls without completely throwing traditional resources at the problem.
Right. That is great. And you led right into that question, because I was going to ask you, what is the Grit Foundation? And you'd had answered about the police training. That was a question from Mr. Bagwell, said, would you support more funding for our police forces, i.e. for more training, things like that? And you already gave your answer as of course, yes.
Yes, and I think, again, one of the things that I'm very proud of is we're the only candidate in the race that really understands the programs that exist for first responders and how to navigate them, where they fall short. And that is where that coalition of our first responders has come in, because we've sat with them and we've said, we have an opportunity in the 117th Congress to really make great positive changes to these programs and deliver the resources that are needed. So that's something I'm very excited about. But the Grit Foundation, we started in 2017 because I was having a hard time, again, with the hypocrisy issue, reconciling the fact that I was helping these departments look for federal funding opportunities, but I'm a small government conservative. So how do you reconcile, these big government programs with your personal beliefs of small government? And Congressman Yoho said something to me that he never should have said, which was, well, maybe you ought to do something about it.
That sounds like it.
Yes, and my husband will tell you that the most dangerous thing is a bored cat, because I cannot sit still. And so he said, you ought to do something about it. And so my best friend Jessica Norfleet and my husband, we sat down and we thought on it, we prayed on it, and I said, you know what, I really think that we ought to do this. We need to form a foundation that acts as an umbrella for the region, because each department, some has a Friends of, like a Friends of Clay County Fire Rescue, Friends of Bradford Sheriff's Office. Yeah. And it gets very cumbersome for each department to manage that 501c3 and all the compliance that goes with it and the fundraising and the programming. Right. I said, why don't we build an umbrella, work smarter, not harder, and become the official charity for all these different departments so we can leverage resources and volunteer hours across the region. Because we have a ton of resources, say in Clay County, and Gilchrist County, for example, has a ton of people that always want to volunteer. So we can help
each other, right?
And so we thought
more of a cross thing,
exactly. Again, becoming a hub. And the thing I'm most proud of is we don't accept any federal or state dollars. It is all private money that is raised.
All right. Wow.
And it is a one-page application that our departments fill out, and it is amazing because every department has such a different need. Green Cove Springs, for example, they were one of our departments that we've worked with extensively. They had never had a canine unit. And Green Cove Springs was really a hub for drugs and narcotics. And so they said, we really are interested in setting up a canine unit. We purchased the canine. It is Canine Grit, the very first canine we've purchased. St. Johns County Sheriff's Office donated the training, the 480 hours of training. And within the first day of being on the job, Canine Grit already had a felony drug bust. And it was incredible. And the handler, Garrett Kreider, he's a fantastic officer. Chief Derek Asdot is one of the best human beings that I know, and Sean Hines, the whole crew that they have over there, they're wonderful, and they have been making drug busts left and right. In fact, the night that Canine Grit was going to be sworn in as an official deputy or official officer of the department, he was late to the swearing in with the city commission, and they run in and they're like, "Sorry, we just busted 7 grams of crack cocaine." And I'm like, wow.
That is awesome.
So whether it's purchasing a canine or cooking for an employee appreciation or providing particulate blocking hoods for firefighters, we have run the full gamut. Q-rays, thermometers, holsters, you name it. Every department has had such a unique need. Putnam County Sheriff's Office, they were needing a new ADA compliant website,
right? Because
the latest thing is people, trial attorneys, these crazy lawyers, that are really just ambulance chasers, looking to make a quick buck. They would go and sue these local departments for not having ADA compliant websites. So we went through, contracted, and built a ADA, fully completed ADA website for Putnam County Sheriff's Office. And now they are protected, and that's just some of the ways that we've supported it, our local departments, and I'm very proud of that.
Mr. Mitchell Gunner was part of an investigation on our show about the ADA. Remember when we did the topic on that on our show?
They were doing the same thing.
They were doing the same in Bradford.
Every county, every municipality, every police department, fire department, all of them. Everyone is at risk, even small businesses. They're just being targeted, again, by these trial attorneys, your Morgan & Morgan,
of course,
types.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a travesty because it is complete exploitation of it's extortion.
It's extortion,
They're just looking to make a quick buck in a settlement, and
you can see it's like $40,000-$50,000.
Yeah,
and they move on to the next one.
That's exactly it.
We're going to get to some other some of our other audience here. Do you know Jeremy Nogle from Florida Grass Cutters? He owns a lawn business called Florida Grass Cutters. He's out of
sounds very familiar.
Bradford. Yeah. So he's on watching. Hello, Jeremy.
Hey.
Byron Bagwell says, "I'll say it, David, for you. China, Russia, and Soros with help from the weather underground." I knew Byron wasn't going to let me get away with that. Byron will keep me on my toes with that, and that's absolutely right, Byron. He said it's all built on a false narrative. We talked about these narratives before, that all Americans don't have equal rights.
Exactly, 100%.
So,
and this is the thing that I have always said, and I heard it from a great guy. His name is Tom. One of the first people I met almost a decade ago. He said, "America, it is all about equal opportunity, not equal outcome."
That's right.
Right, that's right. That's a good way to put that. That's exactly right.
If you want something, all you got to do is work for it.
Yeah.
Noah says ISIS desecrated or sold history to be bad.
Not wrong.
They're not wrong there. Dwight Allen says communists are trying to destroy our country from within. It's nothing new.
Yeah, no, 100%. We are in the fight for the soul of our country, 100%, and that is why I will not back down. I will not give up this fight. This is too important. I know everyone says this election is the most important election, and it is, because elections have consequences. Yes. Look at AOC. Look at Ilhan Omar.
Mm-hmm.
I am the same age as AOC, and she is representing women across the country. When in 2016 President Trump and Hillary Clinton were running, President Trump lost the lion's share by a massive majority of college-educated women. We have an opportunity to rein that back in and bring them to our side, because I believe our principles, our values, and our platform better represents women in this country.
It does. I really agree with that. And I heard about those numbers. I heard it was like a landslide number, and I was really shocked on that, because the earlier polls, I thought that he did have a lot of the educated or the college-educated women on his side, and I don't know what flipped in that, but it did, and those numbers were outstanding. I mean, I just couldn't fathom them.
Well, I think it's a function of the fact that if you look at Congress as a whole, Republican women only make up 2.9% of Congress. 2.9%. So when women look to Congress and they're looking to get involved in politics, they turn on their television. Who do they see? AOC.
Right.
They see Ilhan Omar. They don't have a Republican woman who is out there championing their values.
Right. Kimberly Dawn M says, Kat, thank you for supporting our police and our first responders. Also, our rights to bear arms as well.
Yes, something I'm very passionate about. We don't just talk about it, we do it. I actually sit on the board for Alachua County NRA. And it's been quite a ride being an NRA board member in a very liberal blue county that is basically the Berkeley of the East. But I'm very proud of the work that our board has done. We have actually been the fastest growing NRA county in the country.
Really?
Yes, we turned it around in a year. And we have grown, we actually maxed out. It was 999% growth in our annual fundraising for the NRA.
Wow. As Byron would like
Great
to call
numbers.
it, the People's Republic, but I'll just...
We are the People's Republic of Alachua. But you guys in Bradford are so blessed. Y'all have Mike Weeks, who does a tremendous job for the NRA.
All right. Yes, he does.
And that is a great guy right there. He really does a great job.
Oh, goodness. And we got a great sheriff that helps back and support that as well. So, Vincent Tucker from out in Arizona says, we had the same conversation. Remember, I told you he does his own show. Yeah. The same conversations that we're having, they had that on their show last night, and I didn't get a chance to watch it last night.
I missed that.
Because it's 3 hours back. So they start at 7:30, and it's 10:30 for us. You know, us old folks got to get to bed on time.
I'm in bed then.
And I'm talking about me as an old folks there. Dwight says, amen to you. Christopher Davis, he owns a place called Slice and Dice Barbecue. You ever heard about that?
I haven't.
He's in Lottie. You remember where the old Lottie supermarket used to be? He's right there, right beside that. He opened up that little place that used to be a little restaurant there.
I'll have to come and see him.
It's called Slice and Dice Barbecue. You'll have to go on Facebook and look. Ooh, he has got some delicious food.
Dave's mouth is watering behind the camera.
My wife posted a picture on my Facebook page, and you can go and look afterwards. It's a breakfast bowl. It's about this big, and she says there was no way I could eat it for $6. And I mean, this thing was mounting over. And he's got great burgers, great sandwiches. You name it, and he's got it. So
I love it.
You got to stop talking about food.
I know it.
I'm about ready to raid her refrigerator.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll feed you.
It'd be a great place to hit for breakfast before y'all start walking in the Lottie area.
In the Lottie area.
that.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll definitely do that.
And then, as you're walking back, then you can hit lunch there. There you go.
If the bowl is that big, that's probably the only meal we have.
Jason Dodd says, you're awesome. Dale Woodruff said, loved her before, now more after you've answered all these questions tonight. He said he's just really in love with you now.
Thank you, Dale.
Let's see. Dwight Allen says, thank you, Brother David Rodgers, for complimenting my cooking. Yes, those ribs I'm telling you about, it's those are great. We'll give you some of those ribs.
I'm getting the hookup.
He's kidding.
Yeah, we're getting a hookup. Byron Bagwell says, the bureaucracy is running the country, not the actual government.
100%. I'm telling you, what I have experienced, what I know is that there are these bureaucrats in the basements and all the federal agencies in Washington, D.C., and they just look for homes for these ridiculous regulations. And we have seen it across the board, and that is something that we know how to go after, we know how to attack, we know how to get that taken care of. Because what Congress has done is they have abdicated their role in that rulemaking process, and these agencies continue to grow and grow, and they gain more money, more power, and before you know it, they are running government as we know it. There's a great book, Road to Serfdom, that was done several years ago, and then there was a member of British Parliament, and he oh gosh, I'm going to forget his name, but he rewrote the book. And was serving as a warning to the United States because of what happened with the EU. All the governments abdicated their role and turned it over to the administrative agencies, and it became an administrative state, the EU. And so if you haven't read it, New Road to Serfdom, it talks about how the administrative agencies are so powerful, and they become untouchable. And it puts people in a position, and we've seen it, and I've seen it firsthand as a business owner growing up in that environment, and then of course as a representative serving the constituents of this district. We've got farmers, that have had EPA or DOL inspectors on their property, and they say, well, that shed isn't compliant because you are putting the watermelons in a cardboard box, and that's not considered food safe. And then it gets to a point where it's, well, that's a $10,000 fine. Well, are you kidding me? Does that make the consumer safer? Does that make the employer safer? And then they start getting to this back and forth of negotiating fines. And when you get to a point where they're willing to negotiate, if you donate to certain charities, it becomes a very underhanded process. And if you push back, you're going up against the full federal government, and they have all the endless resources at their disposal.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
So,
Can I say blackmail?
It is. It is. Yeah. It turns into a blackmail situation, and that is why we so desperately have to rein in these federal agencies, because they are not being held accountable. They have strayed so far from their original missions. I mean, heck, look at the Department of Education.
Right.
When the government shut down and you have to designate essential versus non-essential, and 85% of the employees at the Department of Education are deemed non-essential.
Yeah.
That's your sign.
Yes.
There's so much work that we have to do in reining in these administrative agencies. And there's very simple fixes that we have ready to go, and I'm excited to propose come January of 2021.
That is awesome. I did have another question, and Dwight Allen and Byron Bagwell actually have the same question, so I'll go ahead and ask it now. Right. It says, do you support term limits?
I do. Okay. I was one of the first to sign the term limits pledge. I think that, unfortunately, we have a situation where conservatives and Republicans tend to sign it and then adhere to it. And then on the other side, liberals don't. And that's why we have Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and Schumer and Schiff, and they're all these long-term career politicians, and they've just garnered so much power in Washington. And that is part of the problem, is that the right tends to term limit themselves, and there's a high amount of turnover, and the left doesn't.
Right.
And so that is a problem. We need term limits for everyone. Unfortunately, the way that the founders envisioned it, which I agree with, we already have them. It's the electorate's job. Every 2 years, we have the opportunity to vote out the bad apples and keep the good ones in. But we have, as voters, abdicated our role in that process because we don't have very high turnout in these elections.
Right.
And it is a function of the society that we live in. People have very busy lives with families and jobs and multiple jobs. And, it's tough. I get that. But I do see it as our civic duty that we have to vote in every election and be very engaged in the process. But yes, term limits are something that we need to push for. And I'm proud to support that.
Yeah, you're right, because, the thing is, you mentioned we have it every 2 years for Congress. But people don't pay attention to it, and actually the problem is people watch too much news and they don't tune in to C-SPAN and actually see what is actually being said instead of getting in after the fact with all the spin on it.
Right.
And that is the news media is actually the big problem. While we still have 100%. These people in there for 20 and 30 years.
And you hit it. Exactly what is not the only problem, but one of the biggest problems is the media. Mm-hmm. The media has gotten so powerful, and I'm saying this in a blanket sense. It's not just MSNBC and CNN. It's all of them.
Yes, it is.
That follow the money. Follow the money, because the more sensational the headline, the more eyeballs that get drawn to it.
Right.
And the problem that we have is that these news agencies, these media outlets have become so powerful that they can tank a market by a simple headline. And we've seen that. We saw that with coronavirus. We saw that with how dangerous a simple headline can be. Even though it may be misleading, it may be partially true, it might be stretched, it could be spun 6 ways to Sunday, and there's no consequences. And that is a very, very big problem. We need to have independent journalism brought back. And for Pete's sakes, I would love to see investigative journalism brought back.
Yes.
Because right now, I can tell you that is virtually non-existent. And we need to support our local papers, our local news outlets. That is where people will get the best news, I believe, because it is the closest. And that's ultimately what I would like to see done on government level. I would love to see our school boards and our city commissions and our mayors and our county commissions be the most powerful government entities that we have in our country. Washington should be the weakest form of government that we have. We should be giving everything that we possibly can that is not explicitly laid out in the Constitution back to the states and to the local governments. So right now, it is the complete opposite.
Right.
Everything is constantly overridden from Washington. I want to do the 180 of that and make Washington weak and the local governments powerful.
I understand.
That's awesome. Byron says, start with having congressmen actually write their own laws and limit the size to 5 pages or less.
Yes, single issue bills. We ended up losing our cattle ranch because it was one of those giant bills that was over 1,800 pages, and it was a loophole that incentivized banks to push people out of their homes rather than keeping them in it. And no one bothered to read it. If we were able to get back to single issue bills, we would be so much better off because each issue would be given in its pure form and it could be voted on in that way. But unfortunately, the way that Washington works is you get so many issues piled in, so many amendments, and then you get that one poison pill that will tank a perfectly good bill. But because it had something that was so egregious, it'll tank the whole thing.
Yes, you're right. Byron says, stated over 100 years ago was socialists that called themselves progressives.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes, Woodrow Wilson.
Wilson.
Yes.
Yeah. If you don't know Byron, do you know Byron?
I'm sure we have.
Yeah, I know.
You talked
he
to
was
him
on.
at
He
the
was on the
fairground
show.
that
He was
one night.
at the fairgrounds that one night. Byron.
See, Byron, I do know you.
Yeah. Very, very smart when it comes to history, politics. He's done his research. He's done his homework, and he can quote things off the top of his head. And Caney, and he's really sharp, and that's why we like having him on the show because he can bring that aspect. People's always got their niches, right? Well, Mr. Mitchell Gunner has gotten a lot of things done in Bradford County, and he is like our local guru, as I like to call it. He likes to take care of all that local stuff, get things involved with the local thing. I'm the sports guy. I love sports.
I love sports too.
I love sports. I can tell you anything about sports. And Byron keeps up and say he's the history guy. He's our government guy. He's our politics guy. And that's why this show is so great, is because we all intertwine and it all meshes together to a funneled one outcome, really, because that's what it usually does. We'll start with something local, then we'll get into some sports, and then, we'll get into some national thing. And at the end of the night, it just all flows into one.
I love it.
Yeah.
We are Stark's only news station.
I love it. Well, and Byron, if you haven't read it, Congressman Yoho talked about it a lot. There's an essay by Woodrow Wilson that he wrote, and it's where he marries socialism and democracy. And he puts the two together, and he argues that it is the responsibility of the state, not the individual, and that the individual serves the state and government for the betterment of society. And so back then, Woodrow Wilson was marrying the concept of democratic socialism together. And it's something that people really ought to read because it's terrifying. And something else that always continually bothers me is...
Sounds terrifying.
Democracy is not mentioned once in the United States Constitution. So when people ask, what kind of government do you have? And they say, well, we have a democracy. I shudder because we have a constitutional republic.
Yes.
And democracy is not mentioned once. So that's just something as the socialist mob is ranting and raving about our quote-unquote democracy that people need to be mindful of. But we could go on and on about
that. Dave is rating the refrigerator night now, by the way. You just don't see him. He's in the background back there. Yolanda Jones is watching. Thank you, Yolanda. Maggie Wiggs says, why is the Connect unemployment system still so messed up after DeSantis states that he fixed it? It literally takes all you all day to file a claim as you're continuously booted after waiting. Then if I can pull up, after waiting in a virtual waiting room.
Yes. So the unemployment system is actually a state issue. And it's something that I know DeSantis and his team, they've been working on continuously. So I can't speak to why the state unemployment system is broken. That is definitely a state issue. And I can tell you that if it went to the federal issue, it would be even worse. So I encourage you to get with your state reps. I believe if you are in Bradford County, Maggie, get with Bobby Payne, and he would be happy to chat with you about that. It's always good for constituents to reach out to their local representatives because that feedback and that relationship is so critical. So please get with Bobby Payne's office and talk to him.
As a matter of fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sick our bulldog, Mr. Mitchell Gunner, our local guru, and I bet you he'll find out the answer. Would you find out the answer for Maggie?
And
Mitchell?
I think a lot of it is right now is because we have such a high rate of unemployment due to COVID-19 that it's very overwhelming for the staff there. As we see that the government is opening back up and places are opening back up left and right and hiring, it will get easier and easier to file. But I understand what she's talking about because, hey, when you need money, you need money.
You need money, yeah.
And that's very frustrating.
Exactly.
It's very, but and I don't think anyone could have predicted with COVID how quickly we went from a watching, waiting to we're shutting down, everybody shut down,
right.
And then the stimulus bills that came. I mean, I don't think anyone could have ever predicted that 2020 would have been such a dumpster fire of a year.
Yeah, right. Can we just rewind it back?
Yeah, I saw a meme the other day that was about it was from The Office, and I don't know if you all have ever watched The Office, the show.
Yes.
And Dwight Schrute says, welcome to Hell Hotel, where you check in, but you never are able to check out. That's 2020 in a nutshell.
Yes, it is.
I like the one
feels like that.
I always like the one that's Back to the Future.
Yeah.
He says, whatever you do not go to 2020.
Yeah. Brittany Walsh said, hashtag TJAC.
TJAC, yes. That was one of Brittany's bills. Brittany, you're going to have to write in and tell me, remind me what the TJAC was, because I cannot remember off the top of my head.
I hope I'm pronouncing this name right, Kat. Dylan Finnegan, maybe? Finnegan? What do you think? Finnegan. There you go. He says, what is your stance on continued wars overseas, Kat? Would you vote yes on a resolution to remove troops from the Middle East? And would you be send it to vote to send more troops overseas for any, if I can get the more there, for any reason other than direct threat to the U.S. soil?
So one of the things that I'm very frustrated with is the continued use of an AUMF, which is the authorization of military force. I believe that when we send our young men and women into battle, it needs to be with a congressional declaration of war. I think that there are some very serious threats that we need to exhaust all diplomatic options and economic sanction options before we send men and women into battle. I come from a military family. My brother served overseas in Iraq, almost didn't make it home. So we have seen this firsthand and lived this firsthand. Right. And these endless wars that we experience, global war on terror, for example. The global war on terror is I don't want to say a fallacy, but it is such a broad, you're not targeting a regime, you're not targeting an entity, it is a concept or an idea. And that is something that requires a multifaceted approach. It is not something that you can bomb your way out of. You can't nation build your way out of. And we're expending precious lives and resources. And we're putting this burden of debt and tremendous loss on not just a current generation, but future generations. And so leaders need to be exceptionally mindful when they're authorizing military force. And again, one of the reasons why I think I am the strongest candidate, particularly for this seat, is we are in a situation where a flashpoint can occur at any moment across the globe.
Right.
PACOM, which is the Pacific Command, which is the world's largest population of people, has so many instances where it could be a flashpoint. And in 2015, I actually wrote an article talking about the new axis forming with Pakistan and China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and the threat that emerges when we're seeing these arms sales and cooperation in intelligence sharing between these rogue nations that have no regard for human rights or international law. And so if we're going into these situations and these conflicts, there needs to be a plan for war termination. You have to have your exit strategy, and that is part of the planning process. None of the other candidates in this race have experience at that level, and I don't mean that in any derogatory sense. But planning teams are extremely high level, and you have to have that mindset of appropriating resources, funds, and what you are doing when you're sending people into battle, into an active theater. And so these endless wars that we have, they're unsustainable. And we are losing lives. We're bringing back broken men and women.
Right.
And then we're not delivering the care that they deserve when they come home.
Yeah.
So we need to rein in this AUMF situation, because I can tell you that we have seen conflicts that have popped off based on AUMFs from generations ago, right? And that is unconstitutional. And we are not going to be able to solve the world's problems by deploying troops into every country that has a dictator or a situation.
Right.
Without a direct threat to the United States national security, we need to exhaust every option possible before accelerating and elevating it to that level.
And I like how you're talking about you have to have a strategy of exiting out of there, because if you don't, you have a vacuum that can be very, very bad.
Nature abhors a vacuum. And we remember when Obama said, hey, ISIS is the JV team. Well, the thing that I've studied is insurgent warfare. And the French in Algeria was famous. They became the test case for this, right? Mm-hmm. And we went in Iraq fighting a big box, a Clausewitz big box war, traditional boots on the ground, we're going to storm in and do this. Meanwhile, all of those that have studied war in years past saw this for what it was. This is an insurgency type of warfare. This is not your traditional World War II multiple fronts, right? And so you're comparing apples to oranges, and you've got a lot of people. Then the media, of course, is not on your side.
No.
They're making life much, much more difficult for folks that are engaging in this. And so again, you want to be very mindful when we're talking about global conflicts. First and foremost, is there a direct national security threat to the United States? How can that be? You need to exhaust all options before we use military action. And quite frankly, I have been very disappointed with our use of drones and military strikes outside of military control. Our intelligence agencies have been playing a little fast and loose when it comes to eliminating targets. And that's something that needs to be reined in, honestly. We have to be 100% responsible for the actions that we take, because much like if someone were to do that to us, I would expect a response.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. Jerry Feltner's watching. Byron Bagwell says supporting the 10th Amendment.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
What was I saying? States' rights.
That's right. And he goes, wow. Yeah, question mark said, wow. So I'm assuming that he's already even more in love with you now. Brittany Walsh says, Kat Kamick, like Farm Bill primarily being a nutrition bill and not focused on that. Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's frustrating. So the Farm Bill comes up every 4 years, and it is a multi-billion-dollar bill. But 80% of it is nutritional. It's the EBT cards, it's the welfare component, and then the remaining part is the actual agricultural component, which is so very important. And we've worked very hard to try to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse on both sides of this bill. And for so long, people have wanted to separate the two from each other and have it be standalone. And I've seen both sides of it. Unfortunately, it got married. The two issues got married because they couldn't get any common ground between the rural and urban areas. You would see so many of the urban areas voting against the agricultural programs and vice versa. So they married the two together. There needs to be a strong push for educating members on all issues. And I look back at one of my very first months in Washington, D.C. There was a member from New Jersey who looked right at us and said, "Why do we even need a farm bill? Why don't we import our food?" And I looked around, Congressman Yoho looked around at us. I mean, this is why educating members is so very important. But yeah, so that's a great point that Brittany brings up.
You got one?
I've got one.
All right.
I know that I met you.
This time, too.
I met you on the campaign trail, and we talked about this once before. All schools are having a lot of problems on trying to find out children who have dyslexia.
Yeah.
And they really don't have the tools to be able to handle these students. And it can go on for years before it's even diagnosed, even by a parent. They just think sometimes their child is just not in wanting to do the work, when in fact, it's really hard for them to read. And a lot of this funding comes down to the states from the federal government. And that is one thing I would like to work with you on in trying to help educate teachers to look for those signs for these students that has dyslexia problems.
Yeah. And that's actually a pretty personal issue to me. My nephew, he has dyslexia, and he was in a elementary school here locally, and he was struggling tremendously, and the teachers were having to be more disciplinarian parents in the classroom rather than teachers.
Right.
And the problem children that were having disciplinary actions taken against them, or sometimes not, they were really consuming all the teacher's time. So there wasn't any effort to really deal or try to teach or help my nephew. And so they tried to bring in a specialist, but the school was overwhelmed. They didn't have the resources to actually dedicate the time to the students that were struggling. And since we are in a system now that has been set up where they just want to kind of teach to the test and move kids along as quickly as possible, it doesn't really matter if you meet the mark. They're teaching to a standard rather than to the student. And that's where I really have a problem, because what we have done is we've taken funds and we have sent all that money up to Washington. And by the time you send $1 up there, you're only getting 60 cents back. And some bureaucrat in a basement in Washington is saying these are the standards that you should have in your school, in your states. And it's not meeting the mark. We are falling back and behind as a country in every single metric, in reading, in writing, in mathematics, in science, technology, and we're just continuing to fall because we're trying to teach these ridiculous standards. We are not doing justice for our kids and our students. And in this particular school, I won't name it, it was in Alachua County. There was a situation where he was being bullied because of his race. And when we talked to the school about it, they said, quite frankly, we don't have the time to deal with this. You would be best to forget about this incident and just move on.
Oh my God.
And
no, that was the wrong answer.
That was the wrong thing to say to me, personally.
Of course.
And so we elevated it to the school board, but the school board itself was so overwhelmed with so many instances of this same situation in schools all over the county that it all just kind of falls through the cracks. So we have a tremendous amount of work to do in getting our students better prepared for their futures. And we need to get back to teaching the basics. We need to get back to vocational training. We have this program, or we have programmed children to say, you have to go to college.
You're exactly
correct. You will not be successful if you don't go to college. Well, guess what? Not every kid needs to go to college. We have such a need for masons, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and these are honorable, well-paying jobs. And we have just done such a disservice to kids, teaching them that hard work is not honorable. and that you can't make good money. And I know so many people that are electricians or plumbers or carpenters, and they do very, very well, have wonderful lives, own their own businesses. And I'm sorry, we don't need underwater basket weaving and college degrees. That is not what our economy needs.
Exactly right.
You know, we need IT folks. We need to be teaching the sciences, the mathematics. We need cyber warriors. We need kids that are going to really be that next generation. And the thing that America is known for is the creativity. People from all over the world come to the United States because we are known as the problem solvers, American ingenuity. And we are losing that because we are teaching our kids that everyone gets a blue ribbon, everyone gets a participation trophy, everyone is special, everyone needs to go to college. We're creating these little robots. And when they get out of high school, we're producing broken kids.
Right.
Yes, we are.
Well, that's like, I've talked to our ESE department over in Bradford County, and, they're like, well, we don't have quite enough of tools to do this and do that we need to with these kids. Mm-hmm. And it's really sad. So I got on the phone and I called up their Department of Education for Florida. Yeah. And I started talking to them and says, well, actually, our funding for that actually comes from Washington, D.C. on the Fed side. So I was like, well, shoot, I'll start calling people up in Washington, D.C. And I did. And then I heard that you were running, and I went over to a gentleman's house over there near Keystone. Mm-hmm. You remember that? Mm-hmm. And I talked to you about it then. And I actually went out and I purchased some stuff for the school system. I actually got to get it to them for kids with dyslexia. It's got the different color see-through
I love that.
things. So I'm donating those. Mm-hmm. And if they need more, I'm going to buy more for them. But yeah, that's the type of things that I want to make sure these school systems have those tools for that department, because these kids are not dumb by no means.
No,
no, they are not.
They're very, very smart. My son suffers from dyslexia, and as far as when it comes to reading and stuff, he struggles. But if you can read him the quote and give him 3 answers, he's going to answer it correctly. Exactly. So. That was my main thing that, I like to work with you on. Absolutely. And also, you're right. When I've ran for school board in the past, I have pushed for vocational training because, I told them, I said, hey, not every kid is going to go to college. Mm-hmm. We don't need every kid to go to college. We need people who can work with their hands as well as with their minds. Exactly. And I said, if you don't have electricians, carpenters,
pipe fitters, welders.
Exactly.
I was like, who is going to build our nation? Who's going to keep building our nation up?
Kat, I'm glad that you said that because I'm going to go ahead and say it. I work at New Millennium in Lake City. And
I've been there.
Have you? Do you like the setup? It's a neat setup.
That is the way that it should be set up. I love that.
So do you know Mark Ripke? Do you know my GM?
I do.
You know Mark. Okay.
I do.
I've known Mark for 20 years.
We have toured that plant.
And I'll tell you,
I love the incentive package.
Do you?
Yes.
I'm fixing to tell it. So you were saying about not every kid needs to go to college. I'm going to sit here and tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Kat is my witness. I've told these guys, when you pulled into the parking lot, what did you see? You see a lot of jacked up 4-wheel drive trucks. You've seen some boats parked there on the back of some trucks. These men, and I don't have any women in the shop right now. Of course, we encourage women to apply. We would love to have you. But those guys are making an average, am I not lying, Kat, of $100,000 plus a year.
And the thing that is so amazing,
are they welders? As welders and riggers and whatever you do in the shop.
And they teach you. If you have the right attitude and you can get in there, they will teach you.
Because we wanted to do it our way.
Exactly.
So you come in there, not experienced, and come in there and make $100,000. You've seen the bonus board. You see some of those
I've seen the bonus board in the break room, and then when you go through and you're walking on the floor, you see people and they're hustling because they know it's an incentive base. Yeah. And then I love the fact that they take care of the family. It's not just that they will pay for if that kid gets into college. They pay for their college tuition,
pay
right?
For my daughter. Yes, that's exactly right.
I
pay for Autumn's. Still paying for some of Autumn's. We just had a graduation this year. Hey, they're paying for that. I think it's $5,000 a year for 4 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, where are you gonna beat that at? And like you said, these guys didn't have a lot of education. This is coming off the street and look what you can make. So I agree with you on the vocational thing.
Don't need an electrician over there.
Our maintenance men do very well too, Mr. Mitchell Gunner. Absolutely. I bet you'd be a fine maintenance man. But yeah, no, you're exactly right. So I didn't know you toured the plant. How long ago was this?
Oh gosh, we must have toured New Millennium. I want to say Ted and I walked through there.
It was 2 years ago, wasn't it?
I want to say 3 or 4 years ago.
I just started there because my office is in the break room right off. It's the I run the tool room and the supply and purchasing and all that. So it was right off there. So I remember when y'all came.
Yeah,
and I'm trying to remember.
Impressed.
Yes, he was. As a matter of yes.
And honestly, when you have a setup like what they have, that is case in point for why we need to get rid of a federal minimum wage. Because when the free market works, holy buckets. You will see people prosper beyond their wildest dreams.
Yep.
Wow.
And I worked there while it was being built.
And yes, you did. Yep. You should have stayed there because you'd be making that kind of money right now, too. All right. I know it's starting to get a little bit late, and I got a couple more questions. I really want to ask you about China. What are your thoughts on China, and what can we do about them? As far as, I know they hold our pharmaceuticals. They do most of our pharmaceuticals. Most of everything. I was telling these guys the other night, believe it or not, I don't know if you know this. You probably do. You got an industrial background. Do you know 95% of the work gloves are made in China?
Oh, yeah.
There's only one company, Kat, here that makes gloves in the U.S. Are you kidding me?
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
China.
It infuriates me, and we fix get on that because it infuriates me.
I'm about to get up on my soapbox.
Okay, good. I'm gonna sit up through that.
So China is not our friend. China is on a mission. They have a 100-year plan. They want to be the world superpower, and they are going at it in a very systematic, dangerous way. And we can talk about it from any angle, but China is bad news bears. We need to be very aware and recognize the threat that China presents, not just to global markets, but to the United States sovereignty and our national security. So many people don't realize what they are doing. Are you aware that they purchased Smithfield? The Chinese own Smithfield. Smithfield is comprised of over 400 family farms. But now Smithfield is actually doing their processing in China. So when you're in Publix and you're buying a Smithfield product, that's a Chinese product. When you're in Lowe's or Home Depot and you're buying your 4-inch screws, right? Those are Chinese. And they're garbage. They're crap.
They are. Exactly.
And this is why I talk about an America First policy. We need to bring all that manufacturing back from China. 97% of our pharmaceuticals are manufactured in China. Yes. I am in favor, and this is again, and why it is so important that we can have someone who represents this district in the House of Representatives who can get the job done day one. Because first thing we're going to do is we're going to petition to have Section 936 back, which will bring that manufacturing back to Puerto Rico, which is a U.S. territory. We used to do so much pharmaceutical manufacturing in Puerto Rico. The infrastructure was there, and it was a way that we could control the quality and have regular access. If coronavirus has shown us anything, it is that we cannot have any part of our supply chain outsourced anywhere. And Congressman Yoho talks a lot about the ABC policy, anywhere but China. Manufacture anywhere but China. Vietnam, Korea, Japan, Taiwan. Taiwan is an ally of ours. It is well past time that we start negotiating a free trade agreement with Taiwan and recognize it as an independent and sovereign nation. I feel very, very strongly about Taiwan and the relationship that we have with them. But back to China. They are on a mission, and they are engaging in predatory lending practices around the globe. They are getting ready to take over a deep water port in Haiti, which is in our backyard. And when they start doing that, when they have military assets in Cuba and Haiti in our backyard, they're not there for a friendly visit.
No, they're not.
They are going after the United States position, and it is imperative that we push back. We have got to be on our A game when it comes to developing and deploying our 5G network because we are in a race right now on the 5G network.
Yeah, right.
We have seen China completely disregard human rights across the board. Yeah. We know that through communism under Mao, millions of people were systematically eliminated and starved to death. We know from satellite imagery that they have over 1 million Muslim Chinese nationals in concentration camps. And if you don't believe me, why do they have crematoriums in those camps? And where is the international outrage is my question. Why are people not concerned about this? And we see what they're doing with Hong Kong and violating the agreement when Great Britain gave back Hong Kong. Yeah. You're seeing what is happening. They are infiltrating every aspect of our lives. And I fully believe there was a study done by a think tank out of the UK. And they said that because China's deliberate actions to cover up and deceive the international community about the Wuhan virus. About COVID, they are liable for damages upwards of $5 trillion. We can cancel that debt. We need to be very mindful that they are bad players with bad intentions, and we must do everything that we can to protect American sovereignty and support an America First policy that does not involve any part of our supply chain being in China.
I don't get it.
That's a great answer.
And speaking of China, how much of the cattle industry do they own here in the United States? About 80%.
About 80%. I was just going to say, we right on those numbers? Is it close? Yeah.
So I don't know if it's exactly 80%, but one thing that has been disturbing is that the USDA, which is United States Agricultural Agency, they did not have a mechanism to track foreign ownership of agricultural assets. It wasn't until Jessica Norfleet in our office actually presented this concept and idea that it was mentioned through our office to USDA, and they started looking into it. But how ridiculous is it that we didn't have that tracked?
Right.
Yeah.
And so that is a problem. We consider ourselves to be the ag candidate in the race. I'm actually supported by the National Cattlemen's Association, Florida Citrus Mutual, Southeastern Milk. We are supported by Florida Farm Bureau and Florida Farm Credit. So we have very, very, very strong ties to the ag community. And we are adamant about supporting our producers because the 1% that makes up our ag community in the United States feeds not just our country, but the world. And as we saw under COVID, food does not come from the grocery store, as some would lead you to believe.
That's right.
We need to support our farmers and ranchers.
I'm glad that you said that because David Mitchell and Byron has heard me say this on the show many a times. I think, with this COVID thing going on and when they had to stay shut down and everything else, one of my pet peeves, if you want me to call it getting on my soapbox, is the farmer. The guy that's out there, and I'm going to say this word, busting his ass every day. Excuse my French there, ladies and gentlemen. I've used that word a time or two. Busting his ass every day, getting out there and producing these crops. And the dairy farmers or whatever kind of farmer you are, I've always thought, and this is just me personally, and I think my constituents will agree with me and you will too, I think they get the short end of the stick a lot of times. I think that our government controls a lot of the things that they do. And to be honest with you, Kat, I'm sick and tired of seeing it. These guys need to get paid what they're worth. They need to be doing what they need to do. And that is just one of my pet peeves that just bothers me. And as you can see, I'm a guy that loves to eat. So,
me too.
So I love our farmers. I think, do you agree?
Our farmers have saved us in the past.
Yes.
And for some reason, now we're paying them to not farm.
Yeah.
Right.
And they say that we're exporting all of China's food to them. But I guess China owns what we're producing to export it to them.
They're systematically going around and purchasing key components of our agricultural community and sectors of it. Smithfield was a great example. The thing that is in particular, and I'm going to bring it a little bit more local, with agriculture in the state of Florida, ag is the number 2 driver of our state economy. Tourism is number 1,
right.
Ag is number 2. And when the markets are bad, like now, tourism is down, What is there keeping things steady and constant?
Ag.
And ag, as you said, is continually getting the short end of the stick. During COVID, we were seeing all of our milk trucks dumping milk in the fields. Well, when you have such a jacked up supply chain and you're putting artificial limits in the stores and the schools shut down and all the tourism goes, you can't turn these operations on and off like a light switch. There is not that capability, and people don't understand that, and people get very upset. But then the government comes in and says, well, we've set it up so that Mexico and Central and South America can dump their produce because Florida is very unique in the state, in the grand scheme. We have the same harvesting season as Mexico and Central America. They have slave labor. They don't have the regulatory process that we do.
Right.
They don't have the same rules, regulations, any of that our farmers have to abide by. And so our farmers are producing quality products and following every single stipulation, law, regulation that has been placed on them by the federal government. And then you have a farmer in Mexico that is doing the exact same thing, doesn't have to pay a minimum wage, basically using slave labor, dumping endless amounts of God knows what on there, not abiding by any regulatory process, and then it's getting trucked across for free and dumped on our market at a fraction of the price for what our farmers have to sell for. And people are wondering why our farmers are disking up squash and tomatoes in the fields. They're wondering why the price of beef has skyrocketed. It's because the government has created a situation where, in particular, Florida ag, because of our geographic location, we are at a natural disadvantage. And they've created a system, and I'm not saying anything in the way of protectionism. I am saying very simple, common sense things that if you allow a foreign entity to dump on a market illegally, it will break the back of the farmer and rancher.
You better believe that.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
that is a fact. And we have seen illegal dumping practices from Mexico and Brazil on Florida in particular over the years, and very few people know about it, and they don't want to talk about it. And it is impacting the farmers and ranchers that this is multi-generational farms, and we're losing our family farms because not only do we have these crazy programs, but then you have things like the death tax, and people are so it just drives me up a wall when I hear someone say, well, these farmers are rich. And I said, are you familiar with the term cash poor, land rich? Do you know how much they pay in property taxes? Do you know what it takes to run an operation? I don't know a whole heck of a lot of farmers that are just rolling in the dough. They are working very, very hard, 7 days a week, because there is no alternative. And they want to keep it in the family. But what we're seeing is the attack on agriculture from the federal government and from state government. It is pushing people out of wanting to be in agriculture.
And when things go bad, Kat, in those particular, with farmers, they try to go get help from the government. They try to get along. And what do? They get it slapped back in their face. It's like, wow, you can't even hardly get along anymore, And these guys are trying to save their farms. Like you said, generational farms. They're trying to save. And they're, like I said, either getting a slap back in the face from the government or from a loan institution. You're not showing this much profit, so I can't give you this much money. And I just don't get why we're not helping these guys out more. It just disturbs me.
Well, honestly, the local...
And who's regulatoring all the stuff that's coming across the Mexican border? I mean...
I could give you example after example of how much we've seen it. We see it every week. There is some shipment of zucchinis or strawberries or cantaloupes or watermelons that is coming through, and it's just riddled with drugs because the cartels are paying these farming operations in Central and South America and Mexico, and they're effectively becoming the mules. And this is a huge, huge problem that we are seeing coming across our border, and all of these farmers are being subsidized by the cartels. This is a problem. It is a national security concern, and we're doing a disservice to our farmers and ranchers here. We're compromising the national security of our nation, and it has to be dealt with.
I agree, and
that's why we need to build a wall.
That's why I gotcha. You sort of talked about who's endorsing your campaign to Congress.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I heard you say about the ag and things like that. Tell us who's endorsing you for your campaign.
Yeah, sure. So we're very, very blessed to have the support of so many different people from all walks of life. Everyone from Senator Rand Paul from the great state of Kentucky,
Yep.
who is really a visionary when it comes to fiscal conservatism and addressing our national debt and our deficit. I think he has some very innovative plans when it comes to how we can attack our national debt, which is one of our biggest national security threats.
Right.
So proud to have the support of Senator Rand Paul. We also have been endorsed by the National Tea Party Express. We've been endorsed by Brian Kolfage, who is the founder of We Build the Wall, which is the private entity that is building the wall that the federal government hasn't yet.
Right.
So that's exciting. We've also been endorsed by more local leaders than any other campaign combined. All of the other candidates combined. So we have Mayor Gene Melvin from Brooker. We have former Mayor of Keystone Heights, Tony Brown. We have Alachua Mayor Gibb Corper, Newberry Mayor Jordan Marlowe, Crescent City Mayor Brett Peterson. I'm going to leave someone out, so I'm going to say Clay County Commission Chairman Gayward Henry. We have, I'm going to look at my list here.
Sure. You can read it off if you want.
Commissioner Norfleet. We have the Marion County firefighters, Clay County firefighters, Alachua County firefighters. In fact, we have every single fire department in the district that has endorsed us. Yes.
Right.
Sheriff Bobby McCollum, Sheriff Bobby Schultz. I've got to flip the page.
Wow.
Yeah, the Gator Fire Council, Denise Grimsley, who she was both a state house rep and a state senator and ran for commissioner of agriculture. She has been a wonderful endorsement in support of our campaign. Matt Caldwell was actually slated to do an event with us, but due to COVID, we had to cancel that. But he's a good friend. We're supported, as I mentioned, by Florida Farm Bureau's Fed PAC. We've received some financial support from them. The National Cattlemen's Association, the Florida Citrus Mutual Association, which citrus, oranges in Florida, they kind of go hand in hand.
Love orange juice. Are you a big orange juice person? Do you love orange juice?
I love orange juice. It's got too much sugar in it,
Right.
Sometimes, but to support our growers, I will absolutely drink Natalie's or Florida's Natural any day.
Yes, I got you.
So please buy orange juice. Our growers, our growers depend on it. You can maybe even turn it into an adult beverage if you need it. I say that because
you say that. Yeah, you say that, didn't you?
Dave's behind the camera talking about adult beverage. Southeastern Milk, Florida Farm Credit, and one thing that we didn't get to talk about, but I'm very blessed, is we are supported by the U.S.-Israel PAC and the U.S.-Israel community in the state of Florida.
Have you been to Israel?
I have.
Oh my gosh, that is a beautiful place, isn't it?
I have.
Where'd you go to?
So I went to Israel as part of my duties with Congressman Yoho in May of 2013, and we toured the entire country. I visited the West Bank. I visited the Gaza Strip. I was at the Dead Sea. I think one of the most incredible things was visiting the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem.
We talked about that. Yes, absolutely.
That was one of the most moving things. And then, of course, visiting the border, we went up through the Golan Heights, and anyone who's been there, you can see you have to take a dune buggy basically to get up through there because there's landmines everywhere. Right. And you get up to the border, and you're at the Syrian border, and it's a UN checkpoint, and you hear gunfire and you hear artillery miles away, and you turn around and you can see the sea, and you get a sense of really how precarious the situation that Israel is in.
Yeah.
You're in a very small country that is surrounded by neighbors that absolutely hate them and want to wipe them off the map. And you overlook the West Bank and you see that the two-state solution annexation issue is so very complicated. And you really understand why Israel has the policies that it has, why support for things like Iron Dome is so important. And I actually have the red alert system on my phone. So every time that a rocket is launched into Israel, my phone goes off, and it's a constant reminder of why we need to support Israel. Our countries are sisters. We are married, and we need to forever remain strong allies because we are both founded on Christian Judeo values, and that is so important that we support our ally in the Middle East.
When I was in the service, we went over there. We used to fly on P3 Charlies.
Yeah.
It's back in the day. My time was in the 90s. Oh, God. I'm saying how old I am.
Starting to date yourself.
That's why you see all the gray hair.
Young man.
But anyway, there you go. So we show these different blanks to different governments. And, of course, we go to air shows and things. So we flew into Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
And
very cosmopolitan city.
Yes,
by the way.
very.
People would be surprised.
Yes. Stayed at the Dan Panorama Hotel. We could see the water right there, right across. It was just beautiful. Did you ever go to Haifa? Did you get a chance to go to Haifa? Israel on the coast. You probably did. Yes.
Yeah.
Did all that, and you were talking about Israel. Israel definitely one of our allies, one of our partners, and I tell you, I'm surprised the United States hadn't unleashed them for more things going on over there, because I am sure they would be ready to bust somebody in the tail if they absolutely necessarily had to.
You know, it's interesting. When I was at the Syrian border, I was talking with one of the generals, and I have a picture of me standing with this general, and we're overlooking, and I said, it's pretty interesting. You guys only have a simple chain link fence. Mm-hmm. You know, don't you have a problem with people coming over? And I'm thinking, of our situation here with our borders.
Right.
And they said, well, our policy is very simple. Mm-hmm. I said, and what is that? And they said, well, we have snipers in the tower. And if someone is trying to cross illegally, we can see if they are carrying a weapon. We shoot them in the head. And if they're not carrying a weapon, we shoot them in the knee. And that pretty much stops everyone attempting to come over. And I'm saying, holy smokes. Holy smokes.
That sounded better than the wall.
Kind of like what I said a while back, while the wall was being built. I said we were to set some Abram tanks out there.
In there.
And as I'm talking to him, I said, oh, wow, that's very aggressive. And he said, well, we are very much a welcoming country, but you have to do it the right way. And they have a whole process. It's a very streamlined assimilation process when people come to Israel, and they really have. They are very tough because they have to be tough.
Sure.
This is a nation, talking about Israel, that they made the desert bloom.
Yes.
They are the true startup nation in terms of innovation and development and research, and it's just so much of a like-minded relationship that we have with them when it comes to those values, those principles, the research development, the technology, so many things that we have in common, and why we should be supportive of each other.
Yeah. And don't want to mess with the Mossad.
Don't want to mess with Mossad.
Well, we just leave that one there. Definitely not. One more question, and then we'll start wrapping it up a little bit. What is the most, and I think you hit this, what is the most important thing you will do if you are elected? I know you went over a lot of it earlier. There was a lot of things. The most important thing, what would you put? Maybe like 1 and then 1A, 1B, or 1 and 2?
The most important thing that I want to accomplish when elected is giving a voice to the millennial generation of addressing our national debt. I feel for so long we have not had anyone who has talked about the mandatory spending that is on autopilot, that is absolutely consuming us, that is the silent killer in this nation.
Yes.
And with 68% of our national spending being on autopilot, we don't even touch it.
Right.
All the spending bills, all the spending fights that we have in Congress, it's all over that 32% of discretionary spending. The most important thing that I could do is get up there and talk about this issue from a platform as a millennial and a voice for not just millennials, Gen Zs, and the generations that follow. Because it is us that are paying for this.
That's
it is
correct.
us that is going to be on our backs. And if we do not deal with this debt, it will deal with us. And it will be austerity measures. It will not be pretty. Our economy will tank. And people will wonder what happened to that beautiful, shining city on the hill.
Yeah. And lead into that, I'm an older gentleman getting there, about ready to retire at some point here in just a little bit. And I know that me and Dave Hollins talked about this. I'm worried about Social Security.
Yes.
Is it going to be around? What do you think is happening with Social Security? And I'm sure you're going to be pro for Social Security, trying to keep it around for us. But what do you think that it may go away? I know I've got about 7 years to retire, so give or take. So I'm just wondering, is that you think it's going to be around in 7 years?
So the way that the system is currently set up, it's unsustainable.
Right.
That 68% of our national spending that I talked about, that is the three drivers of our national debt. It is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid.
Right.
And the way that the system has been set up, we now are reaching that point where there's not enough people paying in versus those that are taking out. And there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse that we haven't had the opportunity to really get in there and make the program solvent. And there are small tweaks that can be made to keep the program solvent for those that have paid in. And the most important thing is that, first and foremost, we need to stop calling it an entitlement. It is not an entitlement. It is your money. It is the taxpayers' money that have paid in all their lives. And government needs to stop treating it like a piggy bank that they can raid at any given moment.
Thank you.
And so that is the first thing, is getting rid of that mentality that this is an entitlement, that it's government's money, it's your money, and they owe it to you. And they have a contract. When you started paying into Social Security, that is a contract that the United States government entered into with every single taxpayer that has paid into the system.
Right.
The government must honor that contract. No ifs, ands, or buts. What we need to do is get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse first and foremost. Following that, we need to make tweaks that will make it sustainable for those that have been paying in up until this point. When we're looking at those that are just entering the workforce, we need to start having serious discussion about how can we make this how can we set up a system, whether it be within Social Security or we privatize, or do a hybrid of the two for those that are coming in, that is their money that is set aside that the government cannot touch, because we have seen that government cannot be trusted with taxpayer funding. So we first and foremost, like I said, we have to preserve the funds and the programs that are there for those that are currently on the program and those that are getting ready to collect. We've got to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse for those that are getting ready to collect and those that are paying in. And we have to make the program solvent. And there's a number of different solutions that have been proposed, whether it is raising the retirement age, whether it is eliminating the caps. There's a couple of different things that can be done. It really comes down to communicating with your constituents and voters about what they see as comfortable. But no matter what, we have to have this adult conversation. And
Yes.
I think it's a little bit ironic that the youngest person in the race is the one wanting to have the adult conversation on this issue.
That's a great point that you bring up there. I know that, and that, like I said, we haven't interviewed a lot more candidates, but I've read on some of their platforms, and I really haven't seen anybody really address that issue.
Well, and it's because, it's politically toxic. It's one of those things where I have seen firsthand members say, do we really want to touch this issue this year? Oh, no, I've got a tough primary. No, they're scared of seeing the commercials of someone, pushing grandma off the cliff in the wheelchair. It's
Right.
that political football that gets kicked around and no one wants to touch it. I'm sorry, but we're at a point where you got to have a freaking backbone. You got to stand up and have these tough discussions, because if we don't, we're not going to have a program. We're not going to have funds that we have paid in all our lives.
Is there a way that you can create a House bill that will say, hey, we can't go in that piggy bank no more. We have to leave it alone.
Good question.
Yes.
You cannot go there no more.
Yes.
If you want to borrow money, Social Security is off the table.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is what we are prepared to go in and do. And having the know-how of how the system works, how the committee process works, the parliamentary procedure, how it all needs to happen, we have that going into it, but we also have the national following. We have the backing where we can rally the grassroots to get behind us, that puts pressure on members in D.C. to move the needle on this issue. That's how we get it done.
That is a great answer. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to On the Spot with David Rodgers. We've been going for a while now. Had Mr. Mitchell Gunner, had Mr. Dave Holland producing back here, and the lovely and beautiful Miss Kat Kamek right here with us. Hope she's answered a lot of your questions. I know we've been going a while. I know we haven't got to a lot of the viewers' questions here lately. Just want to read over a couple of them before I give you some final thoughts that you would like to tell our voters and our viewers. Byron Bagwell said, I guess the book that he said I had to read that nonsense in high school. I don't know. And Byron will come up with those things every once in a while. Noah Gibson said, it's like the 1930s bank failures. Too many people, too few payouts now. I don't mean to put it harshly. Okay, I think I know what he means there.
I think
yeah. Maggie Wick says, I was a layoff from your hospital that closed, not COVID, but it just happened at a bad time.
Maggie, maybe you can respond in the comments. Are you talking about the hospital in Stark?
Yeah, I do. Yes, yes. I talking about the hospital in Stark.
So
I knew that was going to be brought up too, because it usually gets brought up to us. So.
Well, and that's one of the local issues that we're tracking. We have a set of local priorities, and the hospital in Lake City and in Stark are two of the issues that we're following very closely, as well as the rural broadband issue.
Gotcha. Noah Gibson said he loves you each and every time you speak. Brittany Walsh said the Teach Act eliminated a number of programs within the ed and reduced their full-time employees. Yes. So the focus and funds would be on actual education and not on federal bureaucracy. And look, here we go. And it says, to your point, Representative Yo had a few of the provisions from Teach included in the Every Student Succeeds Act, which became law.
She's taking me back to like 2015.
She's taking you back a little ways? I hear that. Noah says Russia pushed both law and lines. They took the coup. Yeah.
Russia is not our friend. They are bad actors and bad players. We need to be mindful of them.
Let's see. Byron says return the education system back to the states.
Absolutely.
So he loves that. Unfinished factory parts that never get finished. You must be talking about China. They ain't got no kind of quality control. They don't have anything. This Cat, you just heard Cat said we need to bring all that back over here as well. Fully funded idea. Brittany was saying. Not sure there. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Britt, you're going to have to send me an email or text me.
Shockingly, Dems on a federal level haven't fought for that. We need to support our local schools in providing a strong education for our kiddos who are wicked smart, but also happen to have a learning disability and learning disabilities.
Actually, one thing that I wrote my thesis on at the Naval War College when I was finishing my degree was the proposal to stand up a cyber academy. Currently, the military academies like West Point or the Naval Academy or the Air Force Academy, they all are top-tier education schools. They are the cream of the crop, the best of the best, and they produce top-notch officers in the military. I had proposed that we are short about 1,700 cyber warriors. The private sector gobbles up all the kids that have the know-how and the education and the background and the talent when it comes to coding and hacking and all of the information systems warfare that we need. So we are short when it comes to the cyber warfare aspect. So I propose that we can actually tap into a whole new generation of cyber warriors by standing up a cyber academy that teaches joint missions, because we are now living in a world where all the branches are working in a joint manner, and will actually be able to admit students that couldn't pass or maybe are not capable due to a disability, the physical rigors that the traditional service academies have. You have to be very, very physically fit. You have to have certain physical requirements to make it in these service academies. Yeah. If we had a cyber academy, we would be able to attract students that maybe have a learning disability or a physical disability, and that could be the next generation of cyber warriors who desperately need.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Brittany said they just voted to put in a new policy that jeopardizes Hong Kong's independence.
Oh, I've been tracking that, Britt. That is just that is a travesty.
I've been seeing that too.
That is a travesty.
So they have it though. China owns a lot of the companies investing in ag in the U.S. and in Canada. I didn't even think about Canada as well, and that's exactly right.
They just purchased a huge hog farm in Canada as well.
I like this Brittany already. She's pretty sharp.
Brittany's
pretty sharp, isn't she? I'm just going to say, specialty crops are getting killed because of foreign subsidies to the industry. What you talked about?
Specialty crops. I mean, tomatoes fall in that category. Orchids, ferns, you name it.
Yeah,
I'm getting killed.
Our buddy Byron says China basically attacked the world with a biological weapon. It's called COVID-19.
100%, and I think that they should be held accountable.
Yes, that's great. Randy Scoggins, do you know him?
That name is so familiar.
Yep, he's watching. Brittany says YAS.
That's Yas.
Exactly right. I wanted you to say it. See, you called me out on this play-by-play, so I had to call you out on something. Costs the U.S. 200 times the amount to produce products than it does the competitors.
Yeah.
So, and that says their competitors. So, okay, Kevin Howell, my color play-by-play man, is on. Carol Morels, supported by veterans.
We love our veterans.
Yep, Israel's a shining light in the midst of a den of chaos.
Yes, that is a beautiful way to say it.
God's people, as you called it earlier. The value of the dollar needs to be put back on the gold standard. And I was going to ask you about that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the fiat currency that we have now, it's backed by belief in our system, and considering that we have not audited the Fed, which desperately needs to happen, and the Fed is not even really a government entity; it's a quasi-government that sets these rates. We have a lot of work to do in that realm, and the fact that with as much that is happening globally, the minute that foreign governments begin unpegging from the U.S. dollar, our fiat currency is going to start having some very interesting challenges. We're going to see some economic chaos. So we have a lot of work to do in the way of getting back to a gold standard or a silver standard or something that backs our currency. Yeah. I'd be curious to hear from your viewers about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I would love to hear.
We talked about that.
Yeah, I would love to hear from the viewers if you guys have any thoughts on Bitcoin and cyber currencies and how that works. I would love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, I know Byron is into that a little bit. Maybe we'll get something back from Byron. Byron says, just defund the Democratic Party, waste, fraud, and abuse. Pass. That's Byron for us. Put it back in a lockbox. He's talking about Social Security. So... great comments, great forum. Raymond No says, and do you have any others right there? Any other comments that I missed there?
That's it.
So again, welcome in. I know we went 2 hours. You know that, a little over 2 hours.
It's 9:40 right now.
Yeah,
so
about 2.5.
2.5 hours.
Isn't that crazy?
It's good though. It's been a great conversation.
It has, and I feel like we could talk with you all night. It's like
we could go on any issue.
Yeah, I was just going to say we could. So I want to give you this time. Just to look into the camera and tell our viewers and your voters what Kat Kammick's all about and what she's going to do if she is elected as your congressperson.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you guys so much for having me on the show tonight. It has been a very candid and open and I think productive conversation, and I just really appreciate you guys making the trip down to visit me here in Gainesville at my home. And I am very thankful for the opportunity to be in this race and this fight for Florida's 3rd Congressional District. I think I would be the best representative for Florida's 3rd Congressional District and the people that make up this wonderful area. Because one, I have the experience to get the job done come day one. As the only candidate who can say that, I think it is more imperative than ever that we have someone who knows how to do this work, will stand up to the establishment, will not back down, and will not fall into the pitfalls that so many freshman congressmen and women have prior to us. I think that is first and foremost the most important thing. Secondly, I feel that we are in the fight for the soul of our country. I see our politicians, our leaders, and our communities falling victim to these socialist mobs. And mob rule is not what America is about. We are a constitutional republic, and we have conservative values that have made this country great. And those are the values that I will uphold as your representative in Congress. I am not scared of AOC. In fact, I look forward to the conversations that her and I will have across the dais. And quite frankly, Ilhan Omar and I have some discussions that need to be had. As the wife of a first responder, when she gets on the House floor and says 9/11, some people did something. Well, my husband became a firefighter because he watched 343 firefighters lose their lives in the towers that day. And he is a man who runs into the burning buildings while people are running out. And we need more people who will support those kind of people, not defund them. So if you are interested in a candidate that is about an America First policy, who will stand with President Trump, who will defend the unborn, who will get our spending under control, address our national debt, and protect our borders once and for all, then I am your candidate. If you have any questions, I'm an open book. Our opponents will run negative campaigns about us, and they have already started. We are not scared of any question or any issue. You can call me at any time. My number is 352-359-5070. You can email me at kat@catforcongress.com. Our team has been working tirelessly, and for the next 46 days will continue to do so. To date, we have knocked on over 10,000 doors and had conversations with people across this district. Our team has called over 117,000 households and had conversations about the issues that matter most to the voters in this district. We have proven that we are viable as a grassroots campaign, but also have been able to raise the funds from within the district and earn the support of more local leaders than any other candidate in this race. I hope that I can earn your support, because ultimately at the end of the day, that is the most important thing to me, is earning your vote on August 18th. And I hope that if you have any questions or any doubts, that you reach out to me and ask personally. And with that, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Kat, and thank you for joining us on this special edition of On the Spot with David Rodgers this Friday night. Got Mr. Mitchell Gunner with us right here, one of my co-hosts on our regular shows that we do every Tuesday and Saturday. Mr. Dave Holland producing. Mr. Michael Heater protecting us over in Bradford County. Couldn't be here tonight, but I felt him poking me a couple of times. Said, David, let's keep rolling. No, Michael does a great job for us. Mr. Byron Bagwell, who couldn't be here with us, our historian. But you see that he sent in a lot of questions here as well. We want to thank you for having us here in your lovely home. It was a great time. I thought we got and hit a lot of great information. I want to thank our viewers for the comments and every question that came through. So very important to doing this show. This show also, Kat, will be on YouTube. After this show is done, it will be downloaded to YouTube. So if you couldn't watch it on Facebook Live, and maybe you get to YouTube, you'll be able to watch it on YouTube as well as early as tomorrow morning. So people can go back and watch the show and what you had talked about. So again, I want to thank you. I want to thank my team and my staff for putting on this great show. And again, it was just a wonderful time. And like I said, I could have sat here and talked with you for about 4 more hours. But sometimes, what is it? All good things must come to an end.
Absolutely.
But I know that you're going to be out there fighting for your candidacy and making sure, like you said, you want to earn the voters' vote. And I think that was well said. So on behalf of my staff, thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you catch the next On the Spot with David Rodgers with my staff. God bless you. Have a great day, a great weekend. The 4th of July weekend, by the way.
Happy 4th of July.
Yes.
Happy birthday, America.
Happy birthday, America. God bless you guys. We love you. Thank you for having us. And we will see you on the next On the Spot with David Rodgers.